All right. Okay. We here. We're just checking the sound level real quick. We finna go live in about 5 minutes. We try to give a little courtesy break in between the podcast just to be respectful. Some of you guys are probably at work. We're gonna try to get you through the day. We're gonna try to get you through this Friday. Um, Appreciate y'all for joining me. It's always a pleasure to be on Blood's channel. It's always a pleasure to see you guys supporting the channel. I greatly appreciate that. As usual, you guys are always welcome to come on to my channel and speak your piece. You don't even have to engage necessarily with the panel. You could just come in and do what I call is spinning the block, man. You just come in and shout your channel out, speak on something that you want to speak on with no body contesting you. It's a free, open, safe, cool space. And then you could duck on out and do your thing like that. So don't ever feel like on my channel that if you do click the link, you're going to be challenged and threatened. Now, of course, obviously, we talk big shit because that's what we do. You can't just be all the way quiet, all the way pussy all the time. Sometimes you gotta, you know, push the barrel down on motherfucker teeth. Y'all know how it go. This boxing, this is a competitive sport. So go ahead and get your juice, get your drink. Go ahead and get your pee on. Roll your blunt, whatever it is you do, real quick. But at 1:30, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So that's in about 4 minutes. Finna get me a bottle of water and move around real quick, briefly. All right, y'all do your thing, but hold your horses. I'll be back. All right. Get started in a few minutes. Let me go ahead and drop the link as well too. I hope you got your drink or your favorite beverage on hand so we can go ahead and cook. And just so we can understand the rules of engagement for today. Yesterday was Get It Off the Chest Thursdays. The reason I call it Get It Off Your Chest Thursdays is it allows you to cuss out shitless any boxer that you want. I used to do a segment called Shitless, and that segment was best describing people that I was dissatisfied with based on my opinion, my subjective opinion. So that's going to happen consistently on Thursday. I greatly appreciate you guys for sticking with me. I've just been a busy guys. You guys know I served in the military. You guys know I transitioned from the military to civilian life. You guys know I be all over the place. I be doing a lot of things, coach football, etc., etc. So now we're in a good space where I can be consistent. So that's going to be on Thursdays. It's going to be in respect to the other channels, so we don't cross over each other's, lanes. And on Friday, I'll usually follow that up with, you know, Get the Smoke Friday, so you can contest any opinion or anything that may have been misunderstood throughout the week, or anything you heard me say or others seen or heard or said on a podcast, right? So without further ado, let me go ahead and drop the link and start putting people in here. All right, let me see something. Let's get the link started if you want to get on. All right, man, let's go. Let's crank it up. What's up, man? What's up, Boxing Chief? What's going on with you?
Yes, sir. First, let me say this on the other page. I was just responding to stuff that was happening. I wasn't trying to start an argument with you about what the Klitschko's were. That was just me talking and putting information out there. So when you address me directly, first of all, thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. I respect that. But none of that was to try and get into a debate with you about, the history of that.
Oh, absolutely, man. I got tough skin, so don't get it twisted. I'm cool, even if you were taking a shot. I was just addressing it. I like that kind of stuff. So, just to describe myself for those who may be new and those who kind of know me, and it's a transitional period. Like I said, I used to deploy a lot. I had a lot of stuff going on. I was coaching, just life stuff in general. So some of the older guys know me, and some of the new guys don't, because I come in and out. But man, we have fun over here. You could say whatever you want to say. You could disagree as much as you want to disagree. But I just wanted to make sure that the text message did not get distorted on what I was saying in the chat, because sometimes people be like, huh, what? So go ahead, man. What y'all got, man? Get this smoke, man. What y'all want to talk about as far as boxing? Whatever you want to say. The floor is yours, Hype Low. The floor is yours, Boxing Chief. I sit back, I let you guys cook, and then I jump in and jump out. It's about you guys. So go ahead and cook. What you want to talk about?
I'm good for whatever Hypo wants to talk about.
Okay, cool, no doubt. What you got on your mind, big dog?
Well, just building off what you and Blood. By the way, thanks for having me on. Building off what you and Blood were on just a minute ago. If you're counting guys who are retired, Mike Tyson is still the face of boxing. He's the most recognizable guy, period, throughout the world when it comes to boxing. Floyd would probably be second, then Pacquiao, if you're talking about worldwide. So, but if you're talking about active fighters right now, the closest thing you got is Canelo. And then probably Fury could surpass him if he were to become undisputed. I think if he beats Usyk, he could surpass Canelo. But I have a feeling if Fury gets undisputed, he might retire after. So that might be, I don't know, an interesting thing to think about. But I'd say Canelo, Fury, and then I don't know. It doesn't really matter because there could only really be one, I guess. So one of those two guys.
So, Boxing Chief, what is your perspective, just to introduce us to you, because this is my first time really having you on. So what is your thought process on what Blood's been talking about the face of boxing? And just catch us up on what you believe about boxing.
Blood's not speaking for me, but he and I think a lot about the same things, which is why I went out of my way to try and get on his show, because we think alike, and I wanted to get to know him better as a boxing fan. As for, I'm sorry, I got bad eyes. I'm using my phone. Is that Halo?
Hablo.
What I'm kind of thinking close to the same regards as what Blood says, meaning there's not always a face of boxing just because there's an absence of a face of boxing. So in Floyd's absence of retiring, because whether you want to put him or Manny internationally while they were active, Floyd's still more popular to us here. I don't follow social media up enough to know which one gets more hits, likes, and fairy whatever stuff to try and convince people that they're like prima donnas. But my thing is, Canelo is definitely one if we had to do an interim, but that doesn't mean he's actually crossed the finish line of what Manny and Floyd did, whichever one you want to say was the face while they're active. But like we pointed out in Blood Show, 1+ million pay-per-view buys for a sparring match. And it wasn't because Roy Jones was there, it's because Mike Tyson was. Roy was the icing on the cake and maybe the cherry on top, but Tyson was the eggs, the flour, the cream, the icing. He was the rest of the reason why everybody was there for that. So aside from Tyson before that, or in between Tyson and now, you had De La Hoya for a little bit and then Floyd, because they were icons. I'm also prior military, and I can tell you every time we sailed down to South America, everybody down there knew who Oscar De La Hoya was. Not everybody kept up that much with Roy Jones. I'm not saying they didn't know him. I'm correcting myself. They didn't keep up with him that much. And some of them knew Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales more than they knew Bernard Hopkins. So when we're talking about worldwide impact, I would definitely have to say Tyson, followed by Oscar, followed by whether you want to put Floyd or Manny on top. Floyd resonates because this is our country, but internationally they were both huge stars. But one of them is the face, with the other one being the pseudo second place. Canelo's close, but I don't think he's achieved quite what the pre-mentioned fighters have.
It's not a bad take. Yeah, I left De La Hoya out. You're right. But I also said that Canelo, if it is the closest thing, I agree. He hasn't gotten there yet, like all the way there, like in terms of like global icon. But if you're talking about, Mexico and the Southwest of the United States and pretty much the whole world, like he's the closest thing for an active fighter right now. When Floyd and Manny were doing their thing, that's a tough call because when Manny was really on the come up, he had brought, I don't know if you were around back then, but he brought a gang of new fans to the sport. Most of them are gone now, but some of them stuck around. He, being that he's Filipino, and they don't have a plethora of stars from there, and the fact that he rose up so high put him on like almost like a godlike platform to his fans, where Mayweather was very well known, but I don't think he was as beloved as Manny. So I don't know. That's a tough call. I think there you have like kind of a 50-50 split. I also think what you said about Roy Jones is correct. He suffered from being in an era where you had a lot of really big stars, man. And when he was coming up, Prince Nassim was also coming up. He was a huge star. You had De La Hoya. You had Mike Tyson. You had, Chavez was still around. So, I mean, yeah, unfortunately for Roy Jones, no, he was never even close, in my opinion.
You just mentioned a fighter that we kind of overlooked for a temporary face while Tyson was in prison. Chavez was so big that fighters in Japan gave him the reverence of being a god. And so we're talking about international success. I forget the gentleman's name, but a Japanese guy took on Edwin Rosario, and he says, "I do not want to do a unification with Chavez because he's a god." So if we're talking in the 1990s, internet's barely functional, and people all over the world knew who Chavez was. Now, not huge Tyson-esque and American money success, but everybody knew Chavez when he was pound for pound the best fighter of the world. He could go to any country and sell out no matter where he went. Like I said, didn't last long, and he's not as iconic outside of boxing. But within the worlds of boxing, everybody knew who he was all over the world.
He also benefited a lot from being on a lot of Tyson's undercards, too.
Yes, he did. But that's just like saying that Chocolito benefited from being on a lot of the even though he's not an icon, not the face of boxing like we're talking about, but he benefited on being a lot of Triple G's cards because people were starting to tune in Triple G. A lot of people get a launching platform. Tyson had his own. De La Hoya had his own. Floyd did not have his own. Floyd had to be undercards and stuff like that also, or even if he was the main event,
Floyd was very obscure for a long time. He was one of those guys that you would mention him and like, oh, he's really good. He's going to be, the next pound for pound guy. And people are like, who's that? He was overshadowed, which is, I think, what led to a lot of his complexes that he still has to this day.
You're absolutely right. He does.
He wanted to be where Prince Nassim was.
Yep.
The guy in the lighter weights who was getting multi-million-dollar paydays, and he just wasn't the same type of attraction until he fought De La Hoya later. And in terms of his performances in the ring, he really never was. I mean, I guess the Gotti fight, he was pretty exciting in that one, but those fights were few and far between for him.
He had a mixed bag, and people look at the end result and forget what he was when he came along. He had the story out of the Olympics, and there was the story on and off with his dad, with Roger not getting enough credit for being the developing force while his dad was in prison from the age of 16 till the age of just around 2021. Roger was doing all that training, getting him ranked, making these performances, and then look at his best performances, with the exception of Manny Pacquiao, after Roger took back over again. The Corrales fight, the Gotti fight, people like the Zab Judah fight. It wasn't overly action, but he outthought him. And the De La Hoya fight, the Shane Mosley fight, a fighter he ducked when they were both at 130 and 135 respectively. He also was somewhat hot and cold. If you remember when he fought, he looked great against Janar Hernandez and Andrew Manfredi. Then Carlos Rios, he fought on TNT, and this is a guy that just got beat up by Cesar Soto down at featherweight. Now Floyd's fighting him at 130, and Floyd couldn't do anything with him. Now, this is not to say this is the detraction from Floyd, but these were the ups and downs he had to go through before he got to be the icon that he is. That's the story I'm telling. And then he had some other, not so great performance. To me, his peak, his absolute prime peak, was at 140 pounds. That's when he's fighting Henry Brussels and talking to Jim Lampley and Roy Jones about, the Final Four in football just before the Super Bowl. While he was fighting, he was just that good. He could take his mind off of what he was doing in the middle of the ring, given it was Henry Brussels.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
But some fighters would have been able, either are too disciplined to, or would not be able to take their focus off the person in the ring and then comment like that and still win the fight as easily as he did. So a lot of people hear me bash Floyd in certain ways. I have my reasons for it, for certain aspects of it, but to say that he wasn't an exceptional talent when he was 100%, that's just ridiculous.
It's Chief, right?
Yes, sir.
Hey, just hang on one second. King David in the chat. No, I would never leave Ali out. We were talking about guys who are living right now. But as far as the ultimate face of boxing of all time, it's got to be either Ali or Joe Louis. Those two guys weren't just boxers. They were world figures on the level of like diplomats and presidents. Yep. and shit like that. Like, you can't even compare anyone. To me, those two guys are in a category all by themselves. It's not even the face of boxing. Like, they transcended that by a long shot. So anyway, Go on. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. And to the gentleman that was inquiring about that, also, you have to put Jack Dempsey in that list. Back when the newspaper and the town crier, whose range was about 10 feet, was the most you had for media to spread things out, and yet people came from all over the world to this country to see him. And man built overnight 100,000 seat stadiums in the 1920s and the teens and the 20s. I can't say Floyd wouldn't have done that back then, but I'm saying that no other sports figure, or really even political figure, made that much of an impact to where everyone had to come to one spot in the middle of nowhere, and you had to build a special arena for the event. That has to be noted, the fact that he definitely was.
Well, that happened other times besides Dempsey. I mean, before Dempsey, you had that with Jack Johnson, and
they didn't come from all over the world building 100,000 seat stadiums for Jack Johnson.
Yeah, they did when he fought Jeffries. Yeah, it was the same story. They bought they built a brand new. Yeah, well,
one time. Yeah. Dempsey did it on the regular. There's the difference.
Well, Dempsey didn't fight very much as his champion. I think he had 5 defenses, maybe, if that.
So Tex Richards believed
fighting like only once or twice every couple of years,
right. But every one of them.
But he was huge. He was a huge icon. There's no doubt about that. Do I think he was a world figure on the level of a Lewis or Ali?
For that time, yes. For that time, yes.
For that time, I wouldn't put him quite there, but he's like one step below them for me.
Well, you also have to remember that's 100 years ago for us right now, and so trying to understand the impact is.
Yeah, but I've studied that era. I've studied it. Yeah. So the Carpentier fight was probably his biggest. Shit. I got a truck backing up. I'm gonna go on mute. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, but when we're putting things in perspective, Also, you got to remember Mike Tyson, when he really started to be the form of entertaining through pay-per-view, when he was fighting Razor Ruddock, even though he'd already lost the title by this time. Where I was from, you had to call the cable company, reserve the box, pick it up a week beforehand, then call the cable company again to make sure that it was turned on to plug it in. With Floyd, you turned it on, you hit a button, and you got it. So the aspects of how you're selling, as when selling points is part of the criteria of boxing. When Jack Dempsey sold out, tens of thousands every time he fought, and you can say 6 defenses. That's 5 more times than that's 5 more situations, not times 5, but 5 more situations that he did than Jack Johnson. Now, I haven't studied
but
in
if
depth
you
to the
look
point that
at Benny Leonard at the same time, he was fighting 10, 15 times a year, and he was very popular too. So it was kind of like a little bit like when you had Mike Tyson and De La Hoya.
right,
Fuck, this truck is killing
but
me.
Tyson was already known as the icon. So I tell you what, I
Right,
respect
but
your
De La
opinion on
Hoya,
based on.
but De La Hoya was also a huge star at the same time as Mike Tyson. That's my point. Dempsey had Benny Leonard, who was kind of carrying the sport on his back, fighting very often, keeping the sport interesting, while Jack Dempsey was taking these long layoffs.
I'm going to go ahead and take your word on all of that based off the fact that I've got to go back and research how, like, the impact that Benny Leonard was having per fight, because a lot of those
He
guys
had the biggest live gate aside from Dempsey. He was number 2 on the records at that
So
time.
you're just confirming my point. He's number 2. We're talking about number
Yeah,
1
but
face.
he was
So you
fighting
just
way
confirmed my
more.
point.
He
You
was
just
fighting
confirmed the
way
point.
more, and he was extremely. I'm not saying he was bigger than Dempsey. He wasn't. But all I'm saying is that I don't know if I put Dempsey on the same level because
How can you not?
Ali and Tyson, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Ali and Lewis, both were world figures, like, all over in a time where, like you said, they didn't have access to the fights and everything like that. They were looked at as almost like diplomats or something, like,
Dempsey literally
whereas
was too.
Dempsey was kind of hated at certain points in his career too.
So was Ali and so was Tyson.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm thinking Lewis wasn't, but
no, you're right. No, I'm sorry.
Ali
I
was
mixed
at the
somebody else.
beginning.
You're right.
Ali was at the beginning. He was
Lewis
hated
was
at the
never
beginning.
hated. You're right.
But as later on, when he was the champion, when he was the world figure, he wasn't hated.
So back to where we're going with this, you're also talking about everyone with Lewis and Ali and even Tyson. Everyone had a TV. Most people had cable. There was radio, and that was it. Radio and newspaper. And Dempsey still made that.
Lewis
Made,
as well.
Well, all right, not everybody had a TV, but you had radio. You didn't have as much radio when Dempsey was around. It was there, but it wasn't the same.
Really, no one had TV when Lewis was at his peak.
I'm not going to say who did and who didn't. I know that became more of a 50s thing. That part I do know historically. But so they followed him on radio if they couldn't follow him on any kind of a TV or other media platform. So newspaper, radio, what TV?
I put Jack Johnson and Dempsey on a tier just below Ali and Lewis, because if you look at when Jack Johnson fought Jeffries, I think that if I remember correctly, the wires, how they had like telegraph messages back then?
Yeah.
They were all down because everyone was sending the messages about that fight. I mean, they flooded the entire wiring system of the country, and the whole thing was like down, like people were waiting for the news that much. I think Jack Johnson, because and there's another guy who was really hated bad, but I think he's more comparable to Mayweather to me, because people hated the shit out of Mayweather.
Mayweather was polarizing enough to where a lot of people did hate him, but a lot of people did love him. The one that loved him would have named their kids after him. So,
well, we know those guys.
Yes, we do.
Zone 6 came on here like at the peak of the Mayweather thing. How long have you been on here, Chief?
I joined BDA Boxing about almost 3 years ago.
Oh, BDA.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so I'm a panelist there, but I've listened to Blood for a long time. And we finally did a live chat or a live show, I jumped on there. That's where I met Zone. So
That was just now, right?
I'm gonna say this. I want to say this too. When we start talking about specifically the face, right? Where does John L. Sullivan fall into this? The original.
He was for sure. He was
exactly.
Absolutely. So based off of John L. Sullivan, I have to put Dempsey in there too for his time, and I can't put Jack Johnson above him. Maybe Jack Johnson was the one that held it temporarily.
I didn't put him above. I said they're in those two guys are, I would say, just below Ollie and Lewis. I'd say Ollie and Lewis, and then you got Dempsey and Jack Johnson.
Someone go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, keep cooking. But let's say this. Let's kind of get a working list together, and then we can rank them just for shits and giggles for fun.
That sounds like a great idea.
Right. Let's see who's worthy of the list. That way we don't have to just, bullshit around with who may and may not. And we know we're going to start with John L. Sullivan. He got this quote of, I can lick any son of a bitch in his room. So he's the epitome of boxing. He solidified boxing. Without him, we probably wouldn't even have the sport as the way we know it or as soon as we had it. So we definitely know he's going to be in there. We still got old paintings of the handlebar mustaches and, the cool shit about boxing history. But let's get a working list on who we believe that should be on the list in the first place, so we can kind of rank them from there.
So definitely Sullivan. I'm not sure Jeffries, even though he was popular in his time, should even be considered in the conversation. So then we've discussed adding Jack Johnson and Jack Johnson and Jack Dempsey. Then after that, it goes all the way absent, to the best of my knowledge, until you get to Joe Louis. There really wasn't. There were champions, but I don't think there was anyone that just was polarizing enough to where the entire world was paying attention when they fought.
Absolutely. I agree with this.
And Gene Tunney was very popular.
He was, but
he wasn't Jack Dempsey popular or Jack Johnson or Jack Sullivan popular.
I also want to put an asterisk by the guys who drew the color line too, because
I'm not going to do that because it wasn't them that did it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was. John L. Sullivan. John L. Sullivan kind of invented it.
So guess what? Jack Johnson did it also. So I'm not going to play that.
No, he fought a black fighter as champion.
Who? As champion?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Was it a title defense?
Yes.
Refresh my memory. Crickets. Can someone help me out?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out because
I'm looking it up. I forget the guy's name, but he did fight a black fighter as a title defense.
Because Harry Willis even said the fact that Jack Johnson wouldn't fight his own.
Right, and then Jack Johnson said it to Sam Langford himself. He said, "Hey, man, no one wants to see two black guys fight each other." From my understanding, that's what he said.
My thing though is this: it's going on record, and I have the in this corner where Jack Dempsey actually talked about it. Tex Richards wouldn't promote the fight. That had nothing to do with Jack Johnson. I'm not putting an asterisk next to a guy to today's social justice qualifications, which didn't exist back then, especially when the fighter didn't make the choice.
Right. It's not about social justice to me. It's about did he fight all the best guys in his time? It has nothing to do with social justice and what's going on right now. John L. Sullivan didn't fight any black fighters, and there might have been someone who might have beaten him. So it doesn't mean anything when it comes to him being the face of boxing. He was the face of boxing, absolutely. John L. Sullivan,
which is why that
is very high up on the list.
Which is why that comment's irrelevant.
No, it's not irrelevant. It's not irrelevant because he didn't fight black fighters.
It has nothing to do with being the face. You're bringing in something that doesn't belong here.
Look, Hap, look. We just articulate your point so we can kind of get past it, because then we'll veer off into racism. That's what the ranking is going to be for. We do this all the time. And then Boxing Chief will be able to kind of explain why or why not. Because I'm kind of in the line of thinking of, we're talking about the face of boxing. If there's a color line that exists because of what's going on in the world, bring that up with good evidence that's to support that. But I'm telling you right now, I'm a black guy. I'm telling you that John L. Sullivan is a guy who drew the color line, but he was the epitome and the originator of the face of boxing. Um, that's just what it is, right?
I wouldn't say he's the originator either.
Okay, so who are
Who
we
is?
gonna go? Are we gonna go?
I would say the
688.
originator of the face of boxing is what's his face? Either Brockton or the guy before him. God, why can't I remember his fucking name?
Exactly.
No, but bro, we're talking about 1700s here.
I understand what you're saying.
That guy was the face of boxing. Jack Brockton was the face of boxing in his time.
Okay,
that was way before Sullivan.
Okay. All right, if you say so, we'll comb through it and we'll bring up these players from the 1700s as well, because I know what era you in, but we'll go from there.
So we're going back to bare knuckles then too, right?
He's exactly so.
Okay.
Well, John L. Sullivan fought bare knuckle.
Right.
Yeah, he was the first
time
one. He was the beginning of the. He was the first. He was the beginning of the belt. They made a $10,000 belt for him.
Yeah, Hyper, you know this. You know he.
Yeah, I know that, but he lost when he went to Queensberry against Corbett. He was a bare knuckle champion.
Listen, we know that, Hyper. We're not talking about. Okay, so we're gonna have a conversation about the face of boxing or resumes.
It's not about resume. I'm just saying, if we're not talking about bare knuckle, then John L. Sullivan's out.
Okay.
So he didn't have any defenses or anything, and wasn't still a big seller after they had gloves. That's what you're saying. That's pretty much what you're indirectly saying without saying.
No. I'm saying that he became the face of boxing during the bare knuckle era.
Okay, so let's keep pushing and we'll get back. We'll revisit this when we start the rankings. So go ahead. I got Hyper. You can keep cooking if you got something. Okay, go ahead, Chief. It's on you.
I'm looking up the guy. Give me a second.
Oh, no problem. We know you're doing research. Go ahead, Chief. What you saying?
Okay, so whether we count the guy before Sullivan or not, we're definitely counting Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
We're definitely counting Jack Johnson. We're definitely counting Jack Dempsey.
Mm-hmm.
To my knowledge, an icon of the face of boxing that transcended the sport didn't hit again until Joe Louis. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but nothing I've ever read reminds me of that. Then Rocky Marciano. Then Ali. After Ali, I don't think any of the guys he faced, even though they're infamous now, it's because they faced him. So I don't think it'll be another one at heavyweight until Mike Tyson.
Well, it jumped out. So we jumped out of heavyweight then, and then we go into who? Because Larry Holmes was despised, right? We know they hated him.
Well, and he wasn't, even though everyone knew he was a heavyweight champion, it wasn't because it was more to his longevity than it was the fact that everyone all across the world, love him or hate him, had to have a Larry Holmes fight on their TV every time he was fighting. That's kind of what the face of boxing is. The money you bring in is part of it, the selling factor. But let's put it this way: it's the it factor. Did everybody want to be like Jack? Did everyone want to be like Rocky? Because everybody wanted to be like Mike Tyson or Jordan.
So are you saying Larry Holmes was the face after Ali?
I am not. I'm getting the fact. I'm trying to make the point. The fact that he was not, because even though everybody knew who he was due to longevity, it was never, like I said, he wasn't must see TV. Ali was must see TV. Tyson was must see TV. In between Tyson and Ali, you're right. We dropped out of the heavyweight division. Ray Leonard was must see TV. Not just here, everywhere. Duran was an international icon, but he didn't have the same explosion until after he fought Leonard internationally. He wasn't making seven figures back in the 70s and 80s until he fought Ray Leonard that I know of. So Ray Leonard is the reason why he got that. Therefore, Ray Leonard has to be the one. And as great as Duran is, we're not talking greatness. We're talking face of boxing. Duran can't fill that role while Leonard's there. So Ali, Leonard, Tyson. After Tyson, even though I said Chavez had a mini stint, I don't think he had the longevity to really hold it. So I'd have to say De La Hoya. After De La Hoya, Floyd. There've been other great fighters, but the ones that captured everyone's attention worldwide every time they fought, when are they fighting next? We're going to interrupt the World Series because this person's got a fight coming on. That was only The only one that had that kind of impact after De La Hoya was Floyd.
So no Roy Jones.
Not as a face of boxing, no. Remember, we're not talking world talent popular in the sport. We're talking popular outside the sport. I know firsthand because Blood and I were what he was alluding to. That's back when it was just CBS Sportsline and ESPN chat room that people were talking. There was a Roycott going on at one point in time because people weren't watching his fights because he was handpicking fighters that people didn't want to see him fight.
Well, let me say this. I understand what you're saying. But I'm gonna push back on that and say that there was a period where Roy Jones can be considered and was considered to be a face of boxing. Because here's the thing.
Okay.
When you say it transitioned from, hold on one second, let me get all the way in here. Okay. So when you say it went from De La Hoya to Floyd, I gotta talk about that because I like to get to the actual dates and time, that kind of history, right?
Okay.
Not broad and ambiguous. We know that De La Hoya, if you guys can remember, fought Mayweather May 2007, Cinco de Mayo weekend, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that would be the transfer of power or face at that given moment. Do we all agree with that? Okay.
Yes. And Roy had been removed from that before that time.
Right. Good.
Roy was removed, I think, about 2003-ish when he lost to Tarver. And it just he plummeted. His whatever stock he had in this realm of face of boxing plummeted after that.
Okay, got you. So now we're working with two dates. We're working with 2003 when Roy Jones got knocked out after coming from heavyweight, because when he won the heavyweight, when he won that heavyweight bout, right? We know he's the face right there. That's what I'm saying right there. That's my claim. But let's comb through it. So 2003, he falls on his own sword. He gets stopped. Between 2003 and 2007, we have a gap there. So who, between Roy and between Floyd fighting De La Hoya, who's the face of boxing between 2003 and 2007?
I still have to say Oscar. Because even though he lost
to Felix Sturm, Oscar.
Even though he lost to Felix Sturm, at no time did a former welterweight since Ray Leonard command a $30 million payday. Now, money's not all of it, but it was his popularity that commanded that. And he just came off of what most people thought was a loss against Felix Sturm. He still got enough pay-per-views to guarantee him $30 million. Money isn't all of it, but money comes from popularity. People tuned in.
Yeah, he also had albums, and he was like on telenovelas and Latin America and shit. He was huge. Roy Jones to me never really. No, it's just of course he's American, but
no, I mean he's American. He was not worldwide.
He was popular among, I would like to say, like the hardcore boxing fans of that time, and maybe some of the general public, but he was not like a household name until later.
And again, pay-per-views aren't the end-all be-all, but when he fights Julio Gonzalez, it doesn't even cross. It barely gets 500,000 buys.
Well, see, here's the thing. Okay, you guys are implementing pay-per-view buys into it, and we'll get to that.
I didn't.
I'm saying collectively we are. We all are a group putting stuff into a basket. You can eliminate it if you want, because I'm going to probably ask more questions about that. What did De La Hoya do that sustained him and kept him as the face of boxing when he lost to Shane Mosley?
Okay, so we're now crossing, whether we're saying it out loud or not, pound for pound versus face of boxing.
No,
because that's what we are, even though you're not saying it. No disrespect to you, but that's what we're doing.
No, listen what I'm saying. I'm very clear on what I'm saying. If I was talking about pound for pound, we would have a pound for pound argument. I'm just trying to get clarification on what you're implementing a lot of things into what you think it is, right? But it's three of us on the line total. So we're all bringing something to the table and we're going to move it out. If you come out to be right about it and we all agree that, no, we shouldn't consider that, we'll move it off the table. This is just me trying to cover the gaps because I watched the fights and I watched the guys perform at the time, and I remember what was being said. So I'm just thinking in between De La Hoya losing to Shane Mosley and Roy Jones winning up to 2003, I'm trying to figure out how he was not the face of boxing over De La Hoya? What are we considering?
Well, I don't know because we don't have a criteria, and the popularity is what face of boxing
That's the
is.
thing with
Roy, at no
face
point
of
in time-
boxing, though. There is no criteria. It just sometimes you just know, like with an Ali or a Lewis or a Dempsey or Tyson, you just know. It's like
Roy never got to that level.
There's no real criteria for this. If you start trying to make one up, then it starts devolving into these other conversations that get more conflated with how good were they or pound for pound. Like
these are all factors.
Yeah,
Right.
they're all factors. But going back to what we were saying a little bit before, I knew that Jack Johnson had defended his title against a black fighter. It was his fourth title defense, and it was a draw. But the face of boxing originated with a guy named Fig, and then it went to Jack Brockton, and then Mendoza, and then Cribb. That's the original faces of boxing right there.
Talking about the original champions and how, and
those were the original faces of boxing. Those are the guys who made it a sport, that took it from being illegal to legal, that were friends with the king, that they were parts of high society and adopted into it. Like the face of boxing. Fig for sure, definitely Brockton, definitely Mendoza, and definitely Cribb, who fought Molyneux and Richmond. So he fought black fighters.
Okay. But all right, let's put it this way. What did Roy do to be considered a face of boxing?
Well, see, Roy was considered to be the best at the time for his division, not just pound for pound, but he was in videos, he was in genres outside of just boxing.
And they got minimal attention.
What do you mean? He sold albums. In between that time, he had hit singles. He was regarded as probably the
he had. I need you to educate me on this part. So he had hit singles that were actually top of the charts within certain genres.
Right. So, for instance, what we're saying is the face. So when you start talking about the face, you're talking about your extracurricular activities, things that you do outside of boxing that bring other fans into boxing, although you are a boxer. So De La Hoya fit the bill already. We just trying to get a space for Roy. Roy was able to create music that allowed him to reach a different fan base, and they knew him as a boxer, and he was able to galvanize people in different genres of music outside of boxing to bring those fans inside of boxing.
So then we have to go back to the fact that just because he did music, was it successful? And I don't know this. I don't know this per fact. I don't know the fact that any of his stuff hit major numbers and charts, sold lots of numbers, because there's your evidence of how popular the person is. I can make an album tomorrow. If nobody buys it, I'm not popular. I'm not a face.
Okay,
if he's making music and nobody's buying it, I'm not saying that happened. I'm making
you're establishing a premise. Gotcha.
Establishing a premise. Without these facts, we don't have to lean. Oh well, pay-per-views don't count. Well, they kind of do, and they kind of don't, because they established a ground point of how popular a person is. Popularity meaning world known and people attracted to, whether they like you or not. Because like Hop pointed out, people want to see Floyd lose, but they still tuned in and they gravitated towards him. They still did that with Oscar, even when he lost to Trinidad and when he lost to Shane. And even though he should have lost to Sturm, they still flocked to him to go see fight Bernard. I don't remember Roy ever, outside of fighting John Ruiz, I don't remember him. He held that reign for a little bit, you're right, but that was still when De La Hoya was active. And then he lost to he lost to Tarver, and it went down quickly. He was one of the best of his era, one of the more populars of his era. But once they face of boxing, if we're going off what we said on Blood about there's only one at a time, then Roy doesn't get there.
Well, one thing you gotta stop. I know you conversating with Blood, but you're on a different channel and a different platform.
Okay.
His opinions are very different from what we do at the round table.
Okay.
What I'm addressing specifically is the period when De La Hoya lost to Shane Mosley, in between the time when Roy Jones was probably the greatest light heavyweight considered based on his skill set, based on being Captain Hook, based on the albums that he was releasing,
and based off the media not following history, because Michalczewski was the champion.
Based on right, and that's why he wasn't undisputed. But we know he was considered the man. You know, he was unified.
No, they called him undisputed because the WBO wasn't recognized yet. I'm sorry when I talk over you. I'm trying.
You good? We get.
I got ADHD. If I don't talk quick, I'll forget what I'm saying. So anyway,
we get it. We know the WBO didn't get official until 2007, so we cool on that. I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm following you. I mean, you're not dropping us off. You good to go. What I'm saying is, in between that gap, what I'm saying is when he lost and Roy Jones continued to win and continued to perform and continued to hold down and galvanize the sports, he was a household name. He was in the talks of all articles, all news. Not to suggest that De La Hoya wasn't, but I'm saying he lost a lot of that to Shane Mosley, and it started to flip at that division. So when Shane Mosley beat De La Hoya, it then kind of took some of the luster off of De La Hoya. Not to suggest that he's not a player, not to suggest that Roy Jones was 100% the face of boxing. But what I'm saying is he could have fell in the line of being maybe 70% at that point of time, with De La Hoya still being probably 20, with maybe Shane Mosley being 10 or somebody else. I'm just saying that it was a spectrum that in that space, when De La Hoya lost to Shane Mosley, and when Roy Jones went up to light heavyweight and did his thing and won the heavyweight title and came back down and lost in 2004, then, you know, I think there was a space for Roy Jones Jr.
That if you're going to go by that criteria, then we have to consider Julio Chavez for a little bit while Mike Tyson was in prison. Because
when you said Chavez, I agree with that. I don't even know why these guys. I don't know what conclusion you came to with Blood, and I agree because he initially said Chavez, and I agree with that, and I agree with you saying Chavez because there was a space. Boxing keeps moving regardless of the face of boxing not moving with it. It's two different things. They're not there. They can be one and the same, but they also can be separate. The face of boxing can move upward, and the boxing game can move upward, but the face of boxing or whoever that is can go off on a hiatus, get suspended, be blackballed, or have an injury, or, you know, just live life, and somebody can fill that void. Or we can argue, we say there was no one that was considered the face of boxing in between when De La Hoya lost.
Or when you have situations like, well, the De La Hoya Chavez and not Chavez, De La Hoya Jones and Barrera Morales were on their way down, and Floyd was retired, that people tried to force a face of boxing in Chad Dawson.
No,
Not
Chad Dawson. Anyway, but
we're on the same page.
But wait, let me just address Zone's point real quick. Zone, I agree. There was a little period there where you could say Roy Jones, but it's almost like with Canelo right now. He was, but by proxy. Like, is Canelo really on that level of, you know, the real faces of boxing? He is, but he isn't, and I think the same for Roy Jones at that time.
I wouldn't be able to say that, and I can't agree with that, because once he won that heavyweight title and went up to heavyweight, Roy Jones was considered to be a god at that given point in time.
Not to the general public, though. I know as a boxing fan, he was a god. He was a god to me.
No, to the world.
But not on the level of like a Tyson, though, or, you know, De La Hoya. Like, to me, he was known in pockets more than he was, you know, ubiquitously, whatever that word is.
Listen, again, I'm not, when we make the list, I'm putting Roy on the list, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Oh, where are you ranking him? Yeah, okay. No, I would say if Canelo's on there, Roy could be on there too.
No, I haven't got the Canelo. We're just in the pocket of De La Hoya based on what Chief is presented, and I'm just talking about the gap between De La Hoya losing and that pound for pound popularity transferring to Shane Mosley, meaning he pulled something from De La Hoya. Shane Mosley going in there losing to Vernon Forrest. Vernon Forrest going in there losing to. It was a transfer of popularity within the welterweight division.
Right, but then
This,
Bernard Hopkins came around, but now we're going more towards pound for pound back again than it is face of
we're not
boxing.
going pound for pound. We're going from the popularity in the performance in the whole person concept that goes into the face of boxing.
Okay, but each time you name these situations, each one of these people were number one. That's why I bring it up as relevance. Roy was number one, then he lost, and then that whole got that. Actually, Oscar basically got that position back because if you remember, he was extremely popular when he beat Mayorga and when he fought Vargas.
Now I agree with that. After Roy Jones got stopped by Tarver, I agree with that. That's why when he fought Floyd, it propelled Floyd into that position.
Yes, it did.
We already established that from 07 and above is Floyd. But I'm talking about between when he lost to Shane Mosley and that whole situation at welterweight went down a snowball effect, right? And it was unrest within the division to come back around to land in Floyd's lap, all right, to solidify him to go up to fight De La Hoya, right? Roy Jones was the man at light heavy and at heavyweight. So, and not just for pound, but I'm saying that goes into it. I'm trying to figure out how don't we understand that. And while you guys are cooking, right? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna look up the stats and give you guys the numbers on his album sales to implement that into the equation as well too. So y'all keep cooking.
Okay. So we're adding Roy, or you're adding Roy, and we'll debate. But then Oscar, and then Floyd. I mean, between Oscar, Roy, Oscar, between those three scenarios there, who else would have filled that quote unquote void in between them and Floyd? And I don't have anybody. Not to that level. I mean, Manny got to that level. He did. He actually replaced Floyd temporarily because Floyd was inactive, but he was worldwide renowned. He was popular. He didn't keep it. Floyd got it back. But while in Floyd's absence of being retired, yeah, Manny was right there. He was the most popular everything in boxing, especially after he beat De La Hoya.
Yeah, you had Lewis at the time too, but he never really had a home country like behind him like that. I don't think Lewis really transcended the sport, but he was the man in heavyweight. Even when Roy beat Ruiz, he was still the man at heavyweight. Absolutely. But you could argue Roy Jones. I can see the argument for and the argument against. Would be my conclusion.
Well, and again, different show, understand that mentality, but how many can you have faces of boxing? If that's the case, then Manny's definitely there with Floyd. And then you had Shane in there for a little while before Roy, because when Shane beat Oscar, he was the hottest thing of boxing, even though he didn't bring in the ratings and numbers, but he was on talk shows. He rang the bell. He rang the incoming bell for the closing bell for the stock market. Name me another fighter that's done that.
Well, between Manny and Floyd, if you're going by outside the ring stuff, it's Manny. He did movies, he did albums. He was like Michael Jordan, John Wayne, and fucking every other celebrity, Elvis, all rolled into one for the Philippines. So if that's a factor, then I would say Manny.
I mean, in hindsight, moving forward to now, and how they rank as according to still faces of boxing, Floyd surpassed them, obviously, at least as far as we can tell in our country. But
because Floyd's still involved in promotions over here and everything. So.
And his diehard fans really, anytime he sneezes, they have a handkerchief to say "God bless you."
So what were Roy's album sales there, Zone?
I think he's still looking.
He had a couple of popular songs. I know that.
Well, HBO put "Y'all Must Have Forgot" out there for everyone to hear, so that helped.
No, I mean he was legitimately like in the hip hop scene for a minute. In the 90s, I want to say like 94-ish, 93, something like that.
He wasn't that big in '93.
I'm talking about his music, bro.
I didn't even know he had music then because he hadn't even become a major star yet. In '93, he was only fighting Hopkins. Bro, I'm sorry.
All I know is that he was doing shows with like Fat Joe and those guys when they were coming up. Like he did have a hip hop career, for
right.
sure.
I'm trying to make sure we got the time frame straight. So you're talking of
Yeah, maybe my time is off. I'm guessing. I think it was like 93, 94-ish. Maybe a little later. Maybe 96.
Who you
I
talking
don't know.
about? You talking about who? Roy Jones?
Yeah.
Roy.
See, this is what I'm saying. So let me make this clear. The era that I was in, I was just explain exactly where I was at. When I was going into high school in 2000, when Roy Jones, when De La Hoya lost to Shane Mosley, the conversation between freshman year to junior year to my first year in the Navy in like the 04 run was Roy Jones. Now that's me. That's the class of 03, 4, 5, and 6, right? You guys may graduate at different times and you're in different states. Also at this time, we're talking about hit singles like Y'all Must Have Forgot, the Body Headbangers. Not to suggest that you guys may have heard that or not.
No, I've heard it.
Okay, right. So you're talking about during the crunk era of music, and it was a down south genre. Let me look at his numbers and what did he do. So the album is called Round One, and it had the single that was then. He had a single that was then, which peaked at number 2 on the hip hop rap singles chart, right?
Okay. This is all news to me, but thank you for filling me in here because I didn't follow that, so therefore I wouldn't have known it.
Okay, we'll look at it again. I'll do you one even better because I'm not. And I say
Yeah,
this,
I think I was off on the years. I was thinking it was earlier than it was, but yeah, it was in the 2000s.
He was nowhere near a household name in the early '90s because he was
no.
That was my mistake.
No
I
worries.
was thinking of his music. Yeah, he did have a few big songs that I remember from that time. Yes, absolutely.
Let's see something. Let's see. Let's look at them right quick together.
Yeah, because I quit listening to the radio roughly around '96.
Okay, so we're looking at it here, so we can look at it together. And everybody mostly remember these singles. These were released. He had some major artists on it at the time, featuring Mystical. Now, I understand if you're just not a fan of hip hop, I can understand that, but it is a testament to his popularity.
I fully agree with that statement, even though I've never been really in the hip hop community or around it. I'm not going to deny that. I didn't have the knowledge to do that because I don't research that.
No, it's okay. And look, and here we go.
And that's why I appreciate you giving this information because it gives me something else to talk about. And this conversation will come up with somebody else somewhere else someday. Therefore, you're giving me more ammunition for my debate later.
Right. And I say that because let me stop sharing that. And I say that because sometimes we get more information because you actually grow up in that era. Now, Blood may, or you may, or Hyplo can probably speak more to a certain era. But I know at a certain time going into adulthood as a teenager, we could qualify high school as something that is a trendy spot that kind of set trends, and you're transitioning into college or military or to the workforce or into entrepreneurship. 16, 17, 18, those kids at that level have an impact on the world. And they have a say on sports at this point in time because these are the future athletes and the future adults. At that time, Roy Jones was spinning in the club, and he was also whooping ass. So you got to think in 2002 when he was doing that, he also was the light heavyweight champion of the world. Right? And then following that album, he then beat Ruiz for the WBA heavyweight title of the world. And then he was even talking about trying to fight Mike Tyson, Holyfield, and Lennox Lewis. At the time, that had traction, but his team was like, "No, bro, that'd be kind of suicide." And then he jumped back down and fell on his own sword. And I feel like that ended him right there, in my opinion, as the face of boxing.
Yeah, it would have to because he never got that popularity back. But what you're saying and what you're bringing makes a strong argument to put him on there. So I'm not opposed for it. I'm for it.
Yeah, it's specifically in between the gap of De La Hoya losing, because then you got to think what happened to De La Hoya shortly after that. He ended up getting stopped to the body by Bernard Hopkins, and then let's look up De La Hoya and his gaps. Let's find De La Hoya stuff, because De La Hoya had some layoffs, so this might strengthen Roy Jones' case. So let's look at Roy Jones. Let me look it up right quick.
You do that, and I'll bring up Oscar.
Okay, so let's look at Roy. So
I'm not gonna be screen safe, but I'll look up. I'll talk about the information. We'll go year by year.
Oh yeah, we trust you. We know we do this all the time. Okay, so let's look at Roy and what I'm claiming. We're claiming, and let's see the time frames, the accurate time frames. All right. Do some research live in HD. So, yep, I got them both. Good. All right. So, De La Hoya lost, so we can get this accurately done. We know he had lost to Trinidad, but we're gonna let him run with that, right? Then he ended up losing to Shane Mosley in 2000, and it was June of 2000.
Yeah, June 17th.
All right. Okay, so you got him pulled up. So I'm gonna go to Roy, and we can see.
I got two screens, even though you're gonna pull up Roy. I'm gonna look at that at the same time.
Yeah, I'm looking at Roy now. Actually, what we'll do is we'll pull Roy's. You say you got a debate on this?
Huh?
You say you got a debate coming up on this?
No. I'm pulling up. I have two screens, so I'm gonna look at both of them at the same time.
Right. Okay.
So if you're talking James, I've already got Oscar's up. We can talk about not James. I'm getting to Roy Jones from James Toney because I'm box rec. That when you look up Roy Jones Jr., unless you use asterisks in the right spot, they don't recognize it. Okay, I got Roy up.
I got Roy up too, and you got De La Hoya. So we'll share at minimum. We'll definitely share Roy, so everybody can follow this, right? So we're looking at in 2000. We saying June. So Roy fought 2000 May, the month before De La Hoya lost, correct?
We're talking to Mosley. Yes, he fought Richard Hall.
Okay, so now we're good. Now we're going to move on. So later that year, 2000, this is when Roy makes his case to be considered as the man, correct?
On our current conversation, yes. I'm not disagreeing, but this is what we're trying to establish, so I'm on the same page.
Okay, so what did De La Hoya do later 2000 after taking a loss to Shane Mosley?
He fought one time, and that was Shane Mosley.
See, so okay, let's establish that.
Okay.
He didn't fight anymore in 2000.
No.
So he's not there. So definitely Roy Jones is picking up steam after he's fought again in 2000 late that year with another stoppage. So let's move to 2001. What did Oscar De La Hoya do in 2001?
Beat Arturo Gatti and won his title in his fifth weight class, I think, against Javier Castillejo, who had just beaten Terry Norris.
Okay, got you.
I'm sorry, no, he didn't beat Terry Norris. Belay that. He beat Keith Mullings, who beat Terry Norris.
All right. So that's the triangle effect. All right. So after 2001, we moved to Roy fighting again in 2001 in July.
Gonzalez.
Right. So what does De La Hoya do in that period?
The month before, like I said, he fought Javier Castillejo. Won his title, his fifth weight class.
So how many times did he fight in 2001?
2.
Okay. So now we're in 2002. This also when Roy releases the album in 2002. So in 2002, how many times did De La Hoya fight?
He beat Fernando Vargas.
Okay.
Unified and beat Fernando Vargas.
He didn't fight, and then he fought once. So Roy is already more active. Okay. So
no argument.
Right. Okay. So in 2003, what did De La Hoya do?
controversial fight with Shane Mosley rematch.
So he lost again.
Yeah, he lost again.
Okay, so at that point is what I'm saying. Between that period, man, Roy Jones Jr. is the face because Roy Jones is fighting twice a year at a minimum. He did not lose. He has the hardware to solidify his position at light heavyweight, jumps out of the weight class, takes another piece of hardware in 2003 to be the heavyweight, and he releases a rap album in between that.
Okay.
And he comes in and he goes back down. See, and this the thing. After beating Ruiz, he goes back down and beat Tarver the first time.
Right.
The rematch the way he got TKO'd.
And that was in 04. Okay, so here's the thing though. Because we're going off of popularity on this to an extent. We have to. So you're pointing out that he was busier. You can point out that maybe his career was more successful. But none of these put him on a map above Oscar's popularity at that time, especially when Oscar had beaten Vargas.
Well, see, we established already that De La Hoya had lost some of that steam.
He built it back from Vargas, though.
Say what?
He built it back from beating Vargas.
That's not to say he didn't build anything back, but at this point, Roy Jones is considered to be unbeatable, unstoppable. And then when he goes to heavyweight to win that title, it supersedes whatever is going on in boxing at the time. This is just the fact.
So then we go to no, it's not just facts because we got to look at more of this. This is back when people were tired of him handpicking Julio Gonzalez, and fans and non-fans alike. Sports shows like I forget what it is. The one used to have not John Sully. Who's that former Piston guy? That John something, really tall basketball player.
You're talking about the best damn sports show.
Yeah, they're inviting Oscar De La Hoya on. They're not talking about Roy. They weren't mentioning Roy at all. Now, what validity does that have with you? I don't know because I'm not considering them an end-all be-all point of sports information. But mainstream people watch that. Roy wasn't called on to be that show even after beating John Ruiz. Oscar was in 2002 from beating Fernando Vargas. So I don't agree with you on the fact that just because he was more successful, agreed, fact. Just because he did a few things in a I won't say isolated, but a particular genre of hip hop, which still wasn't a mainstream thing at the time, still a fact. He did something there and it was there. But nobody was putting him over Oscar just because he beat Clinton Woods. No,
but what I'm saying is Roy Jones was the face of boxing in between the gap that De La Hoya lost twice.
I'm not but being off of someone that grew up, watched, and knew what was and following. I don't agree with that just because he hadn't lost.
Okay,
that's not his. He didn't transcend like that from anything I saw during that time. Just because Oscar had lost.
Okay. So I'm gonna let somebody else jump in. We got another guy on here, Big Hill. He want to talk about this situation. We're talking about Roy Jones being the face of boxing in the time period. Hill, what you got to speak on it, man? What's your thoughts?
All right, so Roy Jones Jr. I heard him say that Roy Jones Jr. He was talking about his opposition. You know, I got in on the last piece of it, but you know what I'm saying? You only can fight who want to fight you. I'm going to say that.
Oh, we're not going there. We're not going there because there's a list of people that wanted to fight him that he didn't fight.
We got
okay, so who went? Time out. Who? I know you're not talking about people from overseas.
No, let's say Michael Nunn, who was his number one contender. And even if they are overseas, what does it matter? They're ranked. He didn't even defend his manager.
Okay, so name me one of those guys you talking about that was better than Bernard Hopkins at that time.
Well, the main
what
one
does Bernard have to do with this?
He beat a prime Bernard Hopkins.
He beat a green Bernard Hopkins.
He beat a prime Bernard Hopkins. He was a champion.
Green Bernard Hopkins.
How is he green? Listen, how is he green if he was a champion?
He wasn't a champion when he beat him.
He was. He was the IBF champion. Yes,
that was a vacant belt, my friend. Go do your research. That was a vacant belt.
Hey, listen, man. Listen. Bernard Hopkins was a champion, bro.
Bernard Hopkins was not the IBF champion. That was a vacant belt, vacated by James Toney.
Okay, he beat James Toney too.
But wait, this is still not the same. So there's two situations which
you sound like you have a personal issue with Roy Jones Jr.
No,
that's what it sounds like.
Things in factual situations, and you're
no, man. That's what it sounds like, bro. I'm sitting here listening. before I came
I'm just
in. I'm
correcting
sitting
you
here
on
listening at you.
your wrongness. You're not right.
Hey, okay, but
you
you taking it personal. You taking it personal with Roy Jones Jr. That's all I'm
No,
saying.
not I'm telling.
You
Come with
cannot
facts.
say,
You haven't even mentioned a fact
so
yet.
you trying to say the man that's not great? That
I
man
didn't say
was
that.
great, and he
You're
was the
putting words
face
in
of
my mouth.
boxing.
You're
He
putting words
was
in my
the
mouth.
face of boxing during the 90s. What are you talking about? If we talking about the 90s, he was. Roy
He
Jones
wasn't
Jr.
bigger than
was the face
Oscar.
of boxing.
He was not bigger
Oh
than
my
Oscar in the
God.
90s.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. He was bigger than Oscar. Who was better than Roy Jones Jr. from 1990
We're not talking
to
about who's better. We're
2003?
talking about the face of boxing.
He was. He was the face of boxing.
How?
You know,
Was he a bigger
I'm
draw?
gonna say this.
No. Was he a bigger draw?
Say it
No.
again.
He wasn't a bigger draw. He wasn't more
He wasn't
popular.
the biggest. Okay, Oscar was the biggest draw from like 2000 to like he fought Floyd Mayweather to 2007.
Yeah.
Yeah, from 2000 to 2007. I give you that. I said the 90s, bro. Roy Jones
even in the 90s is a
was
bigger
it.
draw. Even in the 90s is a bigger draw.
Okay, man.
How many
All right,
pay-per-views
man.
did James Toney and Roy Jones make? And then how many did Chavez?
Oh,
and
we're getting on
Oscar De La Hoya make?
pay-per-views. There we go. We're getting
Well,
on
we're
pay-per-views.
going into popularity. If I'm selling more than you, I'm more popular than you. That's just a fact.
Are you? So let's ask you this, then, since you're going there. So Oscar De La Hoya was more skilled and could beat Roy Jones Jr.
No, you're putting words in my mouth again. I never said.
I'm asking a question. I'm asking you a question. I'm asking a question. I'm asking a simple question. I'm asking a question though. I'm asking you a question right now. Listen, I'm asking you a question right now.
It's irrelevant to the conversation.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
No, it's not. Change the narrative.
No, bro, it's not. Answer the fucking question. I asked you a question. Answer the question. If you can't answer the question, then why are you talking? Everybody else answering your questions. So answer the question. What's Oscar De La Hoya about Roy Jones Jr.?
Nobody was a bigger face. Now you have to explain why.
Oh my God!
So you don't have the conversation. This is not my fault.
No, man. Hey, man, whatever, man.
Narratives.
I just know. No, bro, I'm not gonna sit. Hey, man, whatever, man. I'm listening at you, and I think it's bull crap. I'm not gonna sit here and let you try to like degrade somebody that I know is a great fighter.
Roy, we're talking.
Yeah, you are. You trying to? You ain't. Have you ever boxed?
Oh, see, now you go to that level, huh? I've trained better fighters.
No, I'm asking a question. It's a yes or no question.
Yes, I have.
Okay. Yeah, you wasn't good.
Neither were you, or you wouldn't be talking to me.
Hey, you weren't good.
Look. What's your name? What's your name?
My name is right there, bro.
I'm on my phone.
Hey,
look, I'm on my phone.
Hey.
Look, listen. Give me 2 seconds.
Hey, my name is right there. You can see. I can see yours.
I'm on my phone. It's microscopic. I got bad eyes. Can you tell me your name, please?
Oh my God! Now you got bad eyes. My name right there.
What is your name?
My name's right there. Look at it.
I can't read it, dude. I'm on my phone.
Now I'm a dude. Why you sound like you mad?
I'm not. I'm trying to talk to you. We keep talking over each other. You're yelling at me. I'm yelling at you. We're treating each other the same. We're treating each other the same.
All right, man. I'm gonna be quiet and let you talk, man. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, would you at least show me some gentlemanship so that I'm trying to start this over and tell me your name, please?
My name right there. My name is
Big Hill, bro.
Dude, it's Big Hill. Get over it.
It's Big Hills, man. It's right there.
Thank you, Big Hill. Thank you, sir. Okay, let's start this from the beginning. This conversation that you jumped into wasn't about was Roy great or wasn't he? I never said he wasn't, and I wasn't going to say he wasn't skilled. I wasn't going to say he wasn't great. Blood Boxing on another channel started something about who's the face of boxing. At no point in time, just because Roy could beat Oscar, just because Roy was a big star, does that mean what do we have to prove the fact that he was a bigger star, a more popular fighter, more world-renowned person than Oscar De La Hoya in the 90s? That's my question to you. It has nothing to do with could he beat him. It has nothing to do with was he more skilled, because very few people were more skilled than Willie Pep, and he was one of the least popular fighters of his time.
Yeah, but he was a great fighter, though.
He was. So is Oscar, and so is Roy. I'm not taking anything away from either one of them. So let me first say this. The first part, when you came in and you said that he beat Bernard Hopkins for a title, no, it was a vacant title vacated by James Toney. So you're right. He beat a Bernard Hopkins. He beat an up-and-coming young, supposedly.
He beat a prime Bernard Hopkins. You tried to say he was green. He wasn't green.
Bernard came into his prime at a later age, just like Lennox Lewis.
But Bernard Hopkins wasn't green.
Yeah, he was at the time. But if you remember correctly, also, Roy didn't want to rematch Bernard.
That's not true.
There was a 60-40 split situation, but he was when they came to find out that Roy was going to get 15 and Bernard was supposed to get 5, they realized there wasn't really a 60-40 split, and that's where the fight fell apart because Bernard was like, "You're not even offering me 60-40." But who he said
so,
that to?
2003, HBO had both of them on HBO Boxing After Dark.
Yeah,
Roy Jones Jr. fought.
And
he
was
fought
fighting in Reading, Pennsylvania.
You're not gonna let me talk.
I was talking with you, dude. I'm sorry. I'm going to shut up because.
Okay. He was fighting the guy from Australia. That's when he put his hands behind his back and knocked the dude out. All right. No. That was on the same one.
No, the double header.
Interviewing Bernard. Listen.
I'm telling you who was fighting. You got the situation right. You got the facts wrong. Bernard fought in Reading, Pennsylvania against a former junior middleweight.
They had both of their fights on. They had Bernard first, then they had Roy, and then him and Roy, before Roy went to fight, they got into an argument about who was going to have a bigger split. I know what I'm talking about, man. God dang. They got in an argument about who's going to have a bigger split, right? And Roy said 60-40, I'll beat your ass. So here's my thing. At that time, Roy Jones was a bigger name than Bernard Hopkins at that time. That's just like with this fight we just seen. Ryan Garcia was not bigger than Tank Davis. So he had to concede to everything Tank Davis wanted. Why? Because Tank Davis was the bigger fighter. So you saying that he was trying to run away from a rematch with Bernard? No. Bernard was supposed to concede if he wanted that rematch because Roy was the bigger draw. Wrong or right?
But okay, but according to what Bernard said,
60-40 was a very fair deal.
But according to what Bernard said, according to what Bernard said of the purse split, he wasn't going to be getting this the 40% they were talking about. Roy was being offered 15, and according to Hopkins, he was being offered 5. That was not 60-40. That's why he didn't take it. That's, to the best of my knowledge, what came out of Bernard Hopkins' mouth himself.
Man, when Bernard said that.
So hold on, listen. This is the point, though. So we all agree that Roy Jones was the face of boxing at a point of time. So we do it. So let's move on. Hill is jumping on saying, "Hey man, I think he's the face of boxing." The comment sections are saying, "Hey man, I think the guy was the face of boxing." Trying to nail down the time period is something up for question. But Roy Jones is definitely, or at some point in time, was the face of boxing. So after Roy, we back to De La Hoya, and then we to Floyd, right?
Yeah.
After Floyd, anything after Floyd, face of boxing after Floyd.
Unless you consider Manny.
That's where we at. Face of boxing after Floyd.
Yep. We did the timeline here, and we're on De La Hoya, Floyd picking up the rock, and then who's the face of boxing now? Because a lot of people, just to catch you up here, they only stick about Tank and Garcia saying that they fight was to determine who's the face of boxing.
No. I don't agree with that at all.
So who you got the face of boxing after Mayweather, if anybody?
Well, I mean, to be honest, it got to be Canelo Alvarez because he's the biggest draw. Because he's the one who sell them. I mean, he's the one who make the most money out of all those fighters. So it got to be right now. It got to be Canelo.
In addition to the money, he was just on a Super Bowl commercial not too long ago. That's pretty freaking big for a boxer, especially one who's not from this country. Even though this country doesn't dictate face of boxing, that's still an accomplishment. I never saw.
Yeah, it got to be. I agree with you, man.
I never saw.
Yeah,
Roy Floyd.
We might got in a heated battle, but if you're right, you're right. I agree with you. It got to be Canelo, man.
Same here. And I just looked it up. You were right. It was Glenn Kelly. I thought it was somebody else. I got my fights mixed up, but I knew the same night, but I was wrong on the opponent. You had me on that one.
All right, I appreciate it, man. I know a little bit. Don't claim to know everything.
Well, look, I don't think if I'm on these channels, I don't think anyone's completely ignorant to boxing. And there's two things I don't lie about to the best of my knowledge. That's the Bible and boxing. So
Yeah.
if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I was wrong there. But I don't try and make anything up.
Got you, man. I got you, bro. But yeah, I agree, man. It got to be Canelo. It's not Tank Davis. It's not that fight with him and Ryan Garcia. I'm hearing that it did anywhere between 1.2 to 1.4 million pay-per-views.
Hold on, Biggie. Hold on, I gotta do this now. Now, Boston Chief, did you concede to something? What was you conceding to?
Well, I'm around the time frame of 02. I'm not positive that Roy was bigger than Oscar at that time, but at 03, and once he beat John Ruiz, I never disputed that. I never disputed that at all. That was a fair statement.
But I'm saying in regards to Hill, did you concede something to Hill?
Well, I conceded. He talked about the night that he and Bernard were on the same HBO card, and I was wrong about the opponent. I'm conceding that full-heartedly. All
right, so Hill, you certified, boy. We call that a body. not just no. That Big Hill, you gotta get his credit. All right, keep cooking though. We respect that, Chief. Go ahead, do your thing.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
keep going, man.
I mean, most of us have been on the same page with you, Hill. The fact that we think, for the moment, at least in an interim situation, Canelo is currently the closest thing you have to a face of boxing. I'm not gonna crown him like we did Oscar. And my other thing is this, and it's from another channel. Blood made the conditions, which is not this channel's, but made the conditions that there's one face of boxing at a time, and that's why I'm arguing against Roy per se for the career wise. But listen. I'm not gonna say he's not a face of
boxing. Hold on, y'all got the flow, but I gotta stop you there. Blood is gonna get you killed over here. You can't go. Listen, I love the other channels.
Okay.
This ain't the same thing, man. Look, you got two guys on here. This just two guys. It's a whole nother squad of guys that ain't even on here yet. Chief, I'm telling you, change your format because we really do this work over here. You're not gonna be able to just say anything to anybody over here based on what you heard from Blood. We love Blood, but it's different. See, and you'll find yourself conceding a lot over here.
Oh, I won't concede any more than I have to. I was still right about Roy Jones didn't beat him.
Well, you were also wrong about Jack Johnson not fighting a black fighter as a title defense.
Ooh, goody tissues.
Oh no. So you have to concede the haplo on that. See, that's two bodies, and we being.
Well, first of all, yes, Hapo, you're right. Two, I got one over on a hill on the fact that Roy didn't beat a sitting champion in Bernard Hopkins.
Okay. Who?
So I got a body back.
Hey, but here's my thing. Time out. You said Bernard Hopkins was green, and he was not green.
Right, but you brought up the fact that he was a sitting champion at the time, and he wasn't.
I said IBF. You said they was fighting for the IBF, right?
I said it was a vacant title. You said Bernard was
okay. I knew the IBF was involved. So
yes, it was. It was a vacant belt on the undercard to Riddick Bowe, Michael Dokes, but it was a vacant title that James Toney had given up.
I'm just telling you.
I'm 2-1. I'm 2-1. That's not bad.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. You got the floor.
Oh no. So we're on the agreement with Hill, and I'm not sure exactly where you are, Six, on where we're going to put Canelo, unless he's just sued him like interim for now, which is what I thought you said before. But right now, based off of where all Canelo's at on TV and everything else, he would have to be filling that void for the moment.
I like Canelo. I think he is arguably the face of boxing. But if we're going to bring in Floyd and we're going to bring in De La Hoya, I'm going to say it's Mike Tyson. So for me, I would say it's not Canelo because I believe that it is Mike Tyson.
I'm not following your logic there. Can you help me out?
Now, earlier the standard was said that Floyd Mayweather could be considered the face of boxing. That's what you're right. So, hold on 1 second. He'll crunching on.
It depends if you're counting retired guys or not.
Exactly. That's my boxing chief. That's what I need to ask you. So, are we counting retired boxers, or are we talking about the active ones now?
Well, I thought when we were making our list, we were going from era to era, which now that we've gotten to Floyd and Canelo to make our list, which is where I thought we left off at, then when you're talking about between everybody since Mike Tyson, I don't think anyone's had the impact Mike Tyson has.
Okay. So I got Canelo in there. I got Canelo as the face of boxing.
Okay. So we're in unison that for now.
I'd say for now and for like the past few years.
No, yeah. Since pretty much since he beat Triple G, that put the icing on the cake for him to be the face, because that got him his own contract, and that got him everything else that's been happening ever since. So, what's next?
All right. Now we can go ahead and start ranking them however you guys see fit. Who we think is the most prolific face of boxing, period.
Say that again.
Go ahead, sir.
I didn't hear you. Say that again, bro.
We start talking at the same time, so I'm going to put my mic on mute and let you go.
All right. Here, the question is, who is the face of boxing on an all-time level between all the people that we named? So what we basically did was placed all the faces of boxing from each era on the list. That's where we at now. And what we're trying to figure out, how are we going to rank those guys? So would you say Mike Tyson? Would you say Ali? Would you say Mayweather? How should the ranking be, in your opinion? And I'll let you.
When you put Mike Tyson in there, man, like he saved the mid and late 80s in boxing and early 90s before he went to jail. And then when he came back out, he was the biggest draw.
Yep.
If I am mistaken, him and Holyfield was fighting for like 30, 40 million bucks in the mid 90s.
The rematch, they split 60 million.
You know what I'm saying? That was a lot of money, man, back then. So, you know, Mike Tyson was like the face of boxing for like damn near in 2 separate decades. He was the face of boxing. Floyd Mayweather was the face of boxing from 2010 to 2020, pretty much, because his last fight official fight before he started doing them expeditions. Well, his last official fight was against Conor McGregor, and I think that did 4.1 million pay-per-view buys.
It got close to the same as Pacquiao Mayweather, yeah.
Yeah, because Pacquiao Mayweather did 4.5. So, whew, man, that's tough, man. To me, in my generation of living, I've been on here for 40 years. So I'm gonna say it's out of those two, because I don't see nobody that sold and had boxing, had people casual fans going to watch boxing more than those two in my lifetime that I can think of.
All right, but what about Ali?
I mean, I wasn't in Ali era, but Ali did own the 70s. He did, and he owned the late 60s. So, I mean, Ali's up there too, but shoot, man, like I said, man, you got to think, man, Mike Tyson saved boxing, bro. And then, you know, because the heavyweights was considered primetime boxing, right? The heavyweights.
Well, he brought it back to
I think that's where Floyd came in and stole the show, because during the Floyd reign of being face of boxing, the heavyweights was trash because you had the Klitschko jab and hold for a decade. So, like, the heavyweight wasn't exciting. So, I mean,
I would put Ray Leonard in there in between Ali and Tyson.
Yep.
For a little bit, yeah. You can say that. You can say Ray Leonard, because he had some wars against some great opponents.
I would say for his career, not just for a little bit. Given he had some long retirements, but when he fought, those retirements were the highest thing going in the sport at the time. And when he came out to fight Don Lalonde, and we all know that Don Lalonde was a good, not great, or expensive.
He also came out of retirement and fought the guy from Puerto Rico, Felix Trinidad.
You mean Hector Camacho?
I could have sworn he fought Felix Trinidad.
He never fought Felix Trinidad.
No,
Camacho. He would have put in a hospital if he fought Felix Trinidad.
Camacho.
You know what? You're right. It was Camacho. I'm getting them confused. You're right.
He fought Camacho. That got Camacho the De La Hoya fight.
Yeah, but I don't think nobody bigger than Mike Tyson and Floyd. If you look at money wise and spark the interest, casuals. But I mean, it's kind of hard not to put Ali up there because Ali, like back then in the 70s, you got to also put in like technology in the world too, man. Like
Thank you.
that's all they had back then when Ali was like with sports was like boxing and like stuff like that. Like now you got to think we're in like the social media era and stuff, man. And if you getting people to buy your pay-per-views and be intrigued in boxing and stuff, man, that speaks volumes. So that's why I got Floyd Mayweather up there, man. And
bro, Ali was way bigger than Floyd.
Yep.
Way, way bigger.
Yeah, I told you why he was way bigger than Floyd, though. I told you why. You gotta look at the time, man. Like Ali was
bigger than Floyd. A, because he was a heavyweight champion. B, because he was a world figure. He was not only a boxer, but he was looked at as like an ambassador to the world, bro. And C, less people had access to be able to watch his fights, yet he got bigger audiences than Floyd could ever dream of.
Yep.
All right, Wayne Talk, you jumped on. So what you got, Wayne Talk? Wayne Talk in here. You've been listening probably. So what you want to cook on and what you disagree with or what you want to add to the conversation? All right, I guess Wayne Talk gonna jump in when he get ready. But y'all go ahead and cook. I just wanted to give Wayne Talk an opportunity to speak.
Yes, sir.
So who you think, Zone? Who you think is in your lifetime? See, I didn't see Ali. That's why everybody keeps saying Ali. In my lifetime, I can't. That's why I can't say Ali. I only can speak for my 4 decades on the earth. Who was big that I think was the biggest.
That's not the criteria whether you saw him or not. We were talking about Jack Johnson before, Jack Dempsey and shit. Like,
oh damn, y'all talking about Jack Johnson? God damn.
I went all the way back to the beginning with Fig and Brockton, and those guys were the face of boxing in their time.
Woo, boy, that boy went back to Jack Johnson. That's a long ass time ago.
Yeah, you beat me to Fig. I looked him up right as you were talking about him.
Okay, all right. I mean, yeah, Jack Johnson was big back in his time. I give you that. And Ali was super big. I'm not taking nothing away from Ali being super big.
And Joe
I'm just saying, like,
are the top two.
I lived through the Tyson and Floyd era, so I know the effect they had. I don't really know the effect Ali had, but by what we can say by history. That's why that's my personal opinion. So I mean, remember, this is opinion right now of who we think. Yeah, this is all opinion.
As a little kid growing up, I knew the names Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard before I even knew what boxing was.
The same here.
You said what?
Before we actually understood what boxing was and were old enough to be diehard fans, we still knew the names of Ali and Leonard before that.
Yeah, and George Foreman. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Well,
by the way, he got a movie that just came out today.
Yeah, I'm a little bit older than you, so George Foreman wasn't the icon until after he came back and really
the George Foreman grill.
That's
what.
I'm not gonna lie. Hey, George Foreman one of the richest former boxers ever.
True. That's not the point we were getting at. We're talking about when we're too young to understand boxing, we still knew who Leonard and
there were names that you just knew because people were saying them, like Too Tall Jones.
Y'all forgetting about one person though. Y'all saying all these people, Leonard. But y'all ain't saying Sugar Ray Robinson yet.
Because he was during Joe Louis, and Joe Louis was the face of boxing during Ray Robinson.
Yeah. We hope
now people talk about Robinson more. Yeah. Back then, Joe Louis was huge, bro.
Historically speaking,
yeah, and that goes back to what I said earlier. He was huge because he was a what? He was a heavyweight.
Right.
Yeah, it used to be always the heavyweight champions. It wasn't until really
Ray.
Ray Robinson, kind of, but not even him, that you had like a guy from a smaller weight class that was more popular than the heavyweights.
Rocky Marciano had his
I would say
little
Ray
time
Leonard.
We
too.
had him. We had him.
I'd say Ray Leonard probably was the first guy to be more popular than the heavyweight champion when Larry Holmes was champion.
Yeah, because he was fast. That Joker was fast, man. Ain't nobody seen that
He
like
was
that.
fast and he was likable. Everybody liked him. He was in commercials and shit. Like, he was the golden boy from the Olympics. He won the medal. You know, like, he was Sugar Ray Leonard was just a name we all knew as kids, like, without even really knowing why.
So, Hava, if I can put two words to
So-
try and sum it up, would say
I got a question for y'all.
talent and let me say this real quick: talent and charisma.
Yeah. What about it?
I give you that.
No, that's
So
why
you-
we were drawn to him. I tried to sum up what you said in two words: talent and charisma.
No, but I'm saying, like, not even that. Like, just hearing the name. Like, I knew the name Sugar Ray Leonard before I knew what the fuck sports were, bro. It's just my brother, my sister, my father. Everyone would say Sugar Ray Leonard, Sugar Ray Leonard. Like, I knew that name. And I'm
Chavez
talking
was
about when
big
I was
too,
like
though.
a toddler, bro.
Julio Cesar Chavez was big too.
Not on that level to me.
Man, he was big, man.
He filled
He
the
was
void
big.
all types of. He was big internationally. He was big internationally. He wasn't commercial success like endorsement, but like I said either earlier on this show or on another show, that when Edwin Rosario lost to that Japanese fighter, the Japanese fighter said, "I don't want to fight Chavez because he's a god." His exact words. So he was still big. But it was mainly still revolving around boxing. And how about what I think you're saying? Ray Leonard was big because he was big. He was talented and everything, but he was famous outside of boxing. Chavez really wasn't.
And you know, we had that little bit of time that y'all not really bringing up. When Mayweather retired, Manny Pacquiao was the face of boxing for a minute
We talked
until
about
Mayweather came back.
and even then they rivaled each other for a little bit until.
Yeah, that's arguable between those two. It depends on what criteria you're looking at.
Right.
Yeah, because that man, Manny Pacquiao was. Yeah.
Hey,
Maybe. Can you step away?
yeah, no, you back in there. You was chopping up bad. Okay, yeah, they had to come back in. Yo, Chief, you still there?
Yeah, I'm doing laundry, so I was over in the laundry room. He was
You good. And they just was chopping out real bad, high flow and hill. I could hear what they were saying. I just wanted to make sure it went all right.
I wasn't talking, but he
Yeah.
was freezing.
Yeah,
he's pretty choppy.
Yeah. So I'm gonna let you guys rotate around. I'm gonna keep this one at about 2 hours, and we can conclude on this. And my opinion is gonna be this: as we finalize the stream, wrap the stream up. I got Muhammad Ali, man, as the biggest face of boxing of all time. That's my number one pick. I probably had to sit down today or tomorrow and really make a list and get my top. I had to get my order based on the people we named because I agree with the list, but I got Ali as the number one guy.
To me, I would have to put Joe Louis up there as a possible number one. Also, because when that Schmeling 2 fight happened, the entire world, it was almost like single combat. It was like America versus Germany, and like he was so famous, dude. He was as famous as Ali for different reasons. But I think those two are in a class all by themselves for those reasons.
All right, and I know Boxing Chief said he doing his laundry right now.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with him. 1A, 1B. Whoever you want to put on top.
You know, if this goes into it, one thing about Joe Louis' popularity that's a problem, and this is the separation. When you have a situation that's popular as Bum of the Month Club, that's gonna be a big hit for me. When we
Richard Dunn wasn't exactly a great fighter, and he's on Ali's record.
Say who was that?
Richard Dunn.
Yeah, that's fine, but he has a Bum of the Month Club.
But here's the deal, Zone. They both fought everybody who was available to them.
Right, but we're talking about listen what I'm saying.
So they can't control who the opponents are.
Right, and I understand that, and I'm not holding that against Ali. I'm just saying when you look at Ali versus Joe Louis has a Bum of the Month association tied to his resume and his popularity. That's the difference.
I would say resume, but not popularity. It didn't hinder his popularity at all.
I just said his resume.
Right.
And that makes that something to look at to say that is not as illustrious or popular or as prestigious as Ali. When your resume or a period in your resume can be considered an insult, Bum of the Month, that's the opposite of the popularity in the face that we're talking about. Not to say that it was enough to knock him off, but when somebody said your resume,
okay, but then are we going to count the 2-year layoff that was not his fault against Ali?
Okay, I got you. This is what we're gonna do. This is what y'all ain't finna do. Y'all said 1A and 1B. You two are confused. So what I need you two guys to do is pick one, so I can know why am I arguing for one or the other. Because you gonna say Ali, I'm not about to debate with you about it. So if you got Ali or Joe Louis, pick which one. We're not there ain't no 1A, 1B shit. 1 or 2. Which one you got?
If I had to pick, I'd say Joe Louis.
Okay, you got Joe Louis, right? And who you got up there, Boxing Chief?
I'd have to agree.
Okay, so you two guys got Joe Louis, and I got Ali.
I don't argue you. I have to go with Louis based off of what was
but honestly, that's gun to my head because I would say they're about even.
When I say popularity wise, face of boxing wise, the criteria, the intangibles outside of the ring that get them there, I'm a hop.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, and Ali got a lot of Hall of Famers on his resume too. So do Joe Louis.
This is true.
But I'm going to say Ali over Joe Louis because of that conversation about the Bum of the Month Club on the resume, and we looked at the viewership of Ali. I just don't know how we would equate that to the radio, right? And that's an interesting one. I have to look at it a little bit more, but I got Ali off the top of my head, especially what he did with standing up to the justice system. I got Ali. I got Ali, especially what he did for the cultural movement, what he did against, what he did for Black excellence, what he did for the entire culture of the people. Politically, he was just more sound than Joe Louis. Joe Louis was cool, and he was more compliant, so I would question some of his popularity as go along and get along. Ali is more or as popular as Joe Louis in spite of. So I would go with the guy who had the harder trail as opposed to the guy who complied with the easier trail. That's not a knock on Joe Louis, but Ali resisted and went against the norm, and he stood up for his people and like-minded people like him, and he still came out as a popular figure.
So usually I don't consider those things in a boxing conversation, but since we're talking about face of boxing, and these are issues that they faced other than their career, I'm forced to look at it and think about it because it actually applies in this case.
Right, because it's not your fault. You don't need to you can look at it or not, but it has nothing to do with the rules that was on the book on the United States, right? Like you're not a policy holder.
No. And I'm not trying to make that advocate. What I'm saying is when I'm going to compare who I think should be ranked number one heavyweight, I don't consider those things because is very little to do with what happened in the ring.
Well, we said, hold on, we're not saying who the number one heavyweight is. We said,
no, I know. I'm making correlation.
Oh, okay.
So that's usually the only time I talk about this stuff is when I'm ranking the fighters as fighters. Right. In which case, I try to take some things that life isn't fair. Like Sam Langford's probably one of the best heavyweights of all time. Never had a title shot. So I don't know how to. Life's not fair. I rank champions. I don't rank people that didn't get title shots based off of I don't know how good they would have done at a world-class level, despite how good they really were, because there's no criteria to base it on other than just numbers of people they beat. So I try to keep their resumes and their careers in perspective when I do this. However, this conversation is based about that and then some, and the things that made them world renowned, like what Ali did. And I have to look at that in this conversation, whereas usually I don't.
Right. So you learning something new. And what I'm saying is
nothing new. It's just something that I didn't have to apply before. This time right. It clearly does.
So you're learning something new about yourself that you could consider. You say you usually don't do it, so this is something that's interesting, okay. Right? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I ain't saying you didn't know the facts about it. Okay. So what I'm saying now is, with that to be considered and understanding the depth of what Ali had to endure and overcome, I feel like that makes him more of the face and a better representation of what boxing attributes describe. Get knocked down, get back up, the endurance, the toughness, the strength. Not to say that Joe Louis was absent of these things, but Muhammad Ali showed it all around, and his name reigned supreme through history.
It's hard for me to comment, Zone, on who meant more to their people at any given time. I mean, the two guys were from two such radically different eras, bro, that I know from what I've read that Joe Louis was an icon. He had his, club in Harlem. He had he was huge, man, and people looked up to him, and he had to be the more compliant because of coming off Jack Johnson. They wouldn't give black fighters a chance at the title, and he had to bow down a lot just to even get that. But when it comes to the fight with Schmeling, I don't think there's any fight that Ali had that meant more to people at that given time. It was like World War II, bro. It was good versus evil. The whole free world was behind Joe Louis. And I just think in terms of popularity, I would edge it towards Louis. In terms of impact, social impact, maybe Ali. That's how I would divide that.
Well, we're not dividing it. We come to a conclusion. We're real boxing fans. We should be able to do this. It shouldn't be don't try to leave out of here. Don't try to leave out of here on a cliffhanger.
Right? I'm not leaving on a cliffhanger. You told me pick one. You told me pick one, and I picked Louis.
You said I picked Louis. I got you. So now you're saying you're separating some things, and you consider things that should be considered separate. You're a boxing fan. You can study history. You know what social politics are, and we talking about in a legitimate sense between two great heavyweights that deserve that, that history, right? So what I'm saying to you is Ali is more popular and he's more of a model that represents what boxing represents as a knockdown, drag down, get up sport. Because Joe Louis, you said it, he conceded a lot of grounds to be compliant. And that is just not as sexy to me
as someone who's still whooping ass and deciding to be himself and stand up for what he believes in on a popularity standpoint.
And what I'm saying is, in response to that, that in the eras that they lived in, they both pushed the envelope as much as they could. And just because Joe Lewis's era was different, I don't think he should be penalized for that. Um, he was the first, black heavyweight champion since Jack Johnson. In order to become that, he had to comply with some shitty terms from Cinderella Man, but that doesn't mean that him becoming champion wasn't like a huge significance and like a big deal in social dynamics.
See, that's where the confusion come in at. Let me make it clear to you, right? Listen to what I'm saying carefully. And I think this is what a lot of people say about social issues across the board. Before you respond, I'm gonna give you a chance to go ahead and say what you need to say so that I don't have to get interrupted. So, do you have anything that you want to say as a caveat before I start cooking on this particular subject matter as it pertains to boxing?
No, I was
Okay,
done.
so you're good. Okay, this is where the issue consistently lie across the board within society. We're not saying, and I'm not saying that Joe Louis didn't do a good thing. What I'm telling you is, in comparison to the approach, compliance or revolution is always in this community, on this side, going to be more popular than compliance. Because when somebody's in opposition to you in the ring, they want to knock you out, and you go with the knockout and you get knocked out like Ryan Garcia did, that's not good for you, right? It's good that you agreed to the fight. It's good that you physically took the fight and you showed courage, but you went with the will of Tank Davis. Tank Davis' game plan was superior to yours. So that's what the symbolism is with Joe Louis. He complied to racism. Let's just keep it a buck. I don't even know why y'all scared to say. He complied to racism, and he submitted to the white infrastructure on a national level. Okay, not saying that white folks are responsible for this, because the national government was responsible for implementing these rules by way of white people. But Muhammad Ali decided to go another route that is more attractive to most people who seek revolution across the world, in Africa, Asia, and everywhere. I don't think Joe Louis had that same effect that you guys are trying to describe.
Okay. Are you good?
You got it.
Okay, so when it comes to compliant, in terms of negotiations with the Cinderella Man thing, Braddock, yes, he was compliant. Yes, he did follow the advice of many who said, be quiet, don't say too much, that kind of thing. But I think he was a product of that particular time frame in the 60s and 70s. That was a time of more social upheaval, revolution, and stuff like that happening in the world. Whereas in the 40s, it was more about a struggle for survival in the world, good versus evil, the Nazis, all that shit that Joe Louis was dealing with. It was just two completely fucking different times. But when it comes to complying in the ring, like what you were saying with Ryan and Tank, Joe Louis was non-compliant. He was a fucking badass. He lost less times than Ali. If anything, Ali complied more with getting knocked out, because he got knocked out by, well, I guess it's even, but he got knocked out by Holmes. He got beat by Spinks. Like, he had losses. Joe Louis, to me, his career was more perfect. And so when it comes to being compliant, I understand what you're saying outside the ring, but inside the ring, he was not compliant.
So you also got to remember, and you left out this part. Joe Louis also got his ass stopped by Max Schmeling as well. Let's not forget that they
That's
fought.
true.
Yeah, so I don't know how we blanket over that. He also lost as well and got stopped viciously, which was also a hit on his popularity as well. When you speak on Larry Holmes, we already understood that.
Yeah, that was the end of his career.
Exactly, and that translated to people hating Larry Holmes. That's why he don't get his just due. But Ali delivered, okay, when he fought George Foreman in Africa, showing you truly just how popular he was and is. That is the same equivalent to him fighting Max Schmeling, as in Joe Louis. Joe Louis versus Max Schmeling, 1 or 2, is just as good as Ali versus George Foreman in Zaire, in Africa, right?
I compare it more with Frazier because they were both called Fight of the Century. So you had Max Schmeling and Joe Louis 2 was a Fight of the Century, and then you had Frazier Ali 1, where Ali got put on his pockets and lost the fight.
Well, man, I understand why they saying fight of the century, because it's the primeness of it, right? A lot of people really just
And the
pick
sales and all that.
right. So Joe Louis and Schmeling prime, same thing with Ali versus Frazier. But by the time we get to Foreman, it's like this is risky, right? It's a difference. So what I'm simply saying is, across the globe, the world, let's take the United States out in its civil rights issues or black rights issues out the equation on a national level, because I know that gets sensitive for people for some reason. On the world stage, revolution has always been better and more popular and more sensational than compliance. Even in the United States currently now, we always look toward revolution as opposed to compliance with the government. We're not going to get deep into that, but I'm saying that also translates to sports. So, like Chief said, I'm making a correlation. Not to say that it's causation, but I'm making a correlation in a direct comparison. And that has to be applied. I yield the floor.
Okay,
Well, hang on just a sec, bro. I'll let you get in a second. But I would say that I understand your points and I agree, but I don't think that being a face of boxing necessarily has to do with being a rebel, like necessarily. Like a lot of times the face of boxing was just like Marciano, for instance. He never got into any political shit, and he was still the face of boxing. So I mean, when you're talking Ali and Joe Louis, that's an argument that I think is really nuanced. And there's the reason I picked Joe Louis is because I've studied a lot about both guys. But most people right now would agree with Zone 6. Like Ali is, no one cares about Joe Louis anymore, and they care more about Ali. So in terms of right now, if you surveyed 1,000 people, I would say more than 80% would pick Ali over Joe Louis. I'm just saying, for me personally, knowing what I know about Joe Louis, I would say Joe Louis was a more popular, more beloved world figure at his peak of popularity than Ali was.
Chief, you got it. You want to see get in? Go ahead. Now rotate it back around. Go ahead, Chief.
Well, first, people in this generation are moving forward or romanticizing World War II less and less. You put Joe Louis in a Jeep riding through the cities in Africa that Mussolini had taken over, and Hitler came in behind him because the Italians couldn't fight. Joe Louis becomes just as much of a social icon because a black man was with a country that helped free us from fascism. I mean, if we're gonna bring it up like this, we got to talk about what would happen in these scenarios. But that didn't happen. And what we do know is that, like Hop said, now, like the World War II era, the only thing people really like to remember about it was Nazis and we beat them. the in nuances that go along with it, including the impact of Joe Louis fighting Matt Schmeling, is being lost on generations that because it's their great grandparents. I mean, I don't even know my great grandparents' name. I know my grandparents. I don't remember my great grandparents, and I definitely don't know my great great grandparents. And nor do many people that don't sit and do their genealogy either. So my point is we're coming to an era where Joe Louis is going to be considered less because he's going to become more forgotten. Because they're only going to look at the boxing career. If we're talking impact of how big they were, what Joe Louis did may have been a quote unquote Western world situation and not in the lower parts of Africa and other things. Whereas Zaire, Ali made a huge impact in that entire culture. It's because someone took him there. It wasn't because he was fighting in America and was, standing up for what he believed in. It's because he went there. They never saw Joe Louis in Africa when the Americans came in and freed North Africa from the fascism. And that's an impact. That's a factor that we have to take into place if we're going to consider all the stuff outside of the ring. Joe Louis is looked at a hero on the free world because they built him up to be a representation of America during a time of potential Western oppression. If we wouldn't have gotten involved, everyone would be speaking German right now. And Joe Louis was a figurehead of that. He was a representation of that through our country, through England, through France. They all knew who he was because he not only was the heavyweight champion of the world, did he fight some of their fighters, he was also a representation of freedom. And Ali was too, but a different type of freedom.
And another thing Joe Louis did was stomp out fucking Hitler's whole Aryan superiority shit too.
That is true. So
Right.
he and Jesse Owens both did.
Right. And then so obviously did Ali. So to your point, Hyplo, I know you understand this because earlier you said you wanted to leave out John L. Sullivan because he drew the color line. Okay, so I know you comprehend.
I didn't say leave him out, just an asterisk.
Okay, so you was arguing against him. Okay. Now, with Chief, you gave a make-believe situation if Joe Louis woulda, shoulda, coulda. But then you double back and said Joe Louis actually did not make those trips as opposed to Ali actually making those trips. And that's what I'm saying. You're saying
I don't think that he took that trip, though, because he wanted to make a cause. He took that trip there because he had no other place to fight.
Okay, all right, Chief, I got you. That's neither here nor there. The factors getting him there doesn't have anything to do with the produced result of popularity, liberation.
No, I agree with Zone on that. The fact that he was brought to Africa doesn't mean shit. He became a world figure. Joe Louis was a world figure too. Of course, at that time, travel wasn't as easy. You couldn't make fights all over the world the way you could during Ali's time because of the fucking war. But, Ali gets full credit for fucking becoming a huge figure in Africa and everything he did. Bro, it's like we're splitting hairs. Both of these guys were fucking huge icons, period.
Right. And I'm saying when we look at it, it may be close, but it may not be as close as what we're saying because Ali was truly a global sensation. Joe Louis was a national sensation.
He was international.
He was international.
It was America versus the Nazis, bro. The whole world was watching.
Okay, so listen, we're rotating it. I'm not gonna be interrupted. I haven't interrupted now one of you guys now time today. Okay, so what I'm saying, we're gonna rotate it. I'm gonna pass it back to you guys. What I'm saying to you is he's a national figure via the World War, right? So Ali is more global without that, with his efforts in Vietnam and his comments about Vietnam. He came out globally first and then nationally second. Joe Louis is a product of nationality and national propaganda. If you was a service member, Boxer Chief, you already know this to be what it is and versus what it ain't. You're talking about two different things. You're talking about Joe Louis, who was a national icon, that was put on the world stage, and Ali, who fought against the nationality and injustice of a nation and still got put on a world stage. I'm just gonna say most likely Ali was the bigger face of boxing.
All right. Well, in response to that, I would say this. That World War II was a war that I don't think anybody on this panel, or really anybody who's not a fucking maniac, would think that America was not doing the right thing by getting in World War II. We were. As opposed to Vietnam, which I would say was a stupid fucking war. And I completely agree with Ali's stance. But I also agree with Joe Louis's stance in supporting the war effort for World War II, because that was a fucking crazy ass war, bro. Like, a lot more was at stake with that war. And you know, to me, that was a just war, where fucking Vietnam was a fucking money-making scheme for the military-industrial complex. So I don't know what Joe Louis would have done had he been in Ali's spot at that time. And I don't know what Ali would have done if he had been in Joe Louis's spot at that time. But I just think it's just two different things. And it's hard to fucking parse out like which one was better. If I was in World War II, I would support America in World War II. If I was alive during Vietnam, I would have fucking protested Vietnam. I mean, that's just the facts.
Boxer Chief, you got the floor? Go ahead. If you want to say something before we rotated the field, so we don't interrupt. Go ahead, Boxer Chief, you got it.
No, I mean, we're trying to say, based off of what we know for what we don't know, of what was a bigger impact everywhere. As I promise you, everyone in Europe knew who Joe Louis was, and that was the Western world. You're saying that Ali's. I actually need you to rephrase what you said, not rephrase, but repeat what you said a little bit about Ali, about going to Zaire, because I think that you said something that I know I want to make a point of, but I don't remember exactly what you said. And so I can't accurately make that point without you repeating yourself. If you wouldn't mind, please, sir.
I just said he went to Zaire. You were saying that he was taken there, and I was telling you that that doesn't have anything to do with the produced result of his popularity.
On the contrary, it does. The fact that because the fact he went there is a factor. It happened. If he wouldn't have gone there, we wouldn't be talking about this. The if that I made about Joe Louis isn't an if about Ali, because Ali went there, and it was a factor. It was a factor that helped produce worldwide fame. He only went there, though, because he couldn't fight in America. He would not have gone to Zaire if he could have fought in Madison Square Garden. So that is still a factor.
So, right. And are you listening to what you're saying?
Why do you say he couldn't fight in Madison Square Garden?
Hold on, man. God, you just had it. See, you finna start running off the rails. You
I just had a question.
No, I'm answering his. We're not finna throw 18 questions in. You could go at the field. I'm just finna respond to his question if he's done, because he still might have the floor. Were you done, Chief?
Not totally. I wanted to get your clarification and get that out there.
Yeah, can repeat. He go ahead. Repeat the question if you can.
Well, if I'm interpreting what you said the right way, you're trying to make it sound like him going to Zaire, which he had to go to. You remember, he couldn't fight in the States. They couldn't get him. They couldn't get him to fight at the time in a big enough audience in America at the time because he didn't, because he wasn't liked. So they took him to Africa.
Okay. I'm going to be quiet, but that's not true.
Go ahead. I'm gonna let you go ahead, Hyplo. I'm gonna let you get it out, and then I just pass it straight to Phil. But go ahead, Hyplo.
I mean, to say that he couldn't get an audience in the United States is just ridiculous, bro. He had the biggest, the fight of the century with Frazier. That was after he came off the layoff. So I mean, they went to Africa. They went to Africa not because of the money. They went there to make a fucking worldwide event, bro. They fucking, spent way, way, way too much money on that Africa thing. They were there for like months and shit. So like the whole Africa thing wasn't about making more money. They would have made more money had they done it in the States, bro.
They couldn't get $10 million in the States. They got $10 million from Zaire.
Oh my God. Oh, they could have for sure.
Well, I'll put it this way: the other people that were investing outside of Don King didn't come up with it. Don King did by going to Africa.
Bro, the investors were against him going to Africa. He saw the vision of doing a big fight in Africa and what that would mean in terms of like worldwide, notoriety. That's why they went to Africa. It wasn't a money thing, and it wasn't the investors that made that decision. That was a Don King promotion idea, like Rumble and the big fight in Africa. That was all promotion from Don King. That was not a wise investment decision, in my opinion.
We're in agreement with that. And I know some of the nuances with that too, but everything I remember about the fact was the money that was being promised to both of them, Don didn't have on this side. He got it from Zaire. He didn't get anyone to commit $10 million to that fight. He got Zaire to commit $10 million to that fight. So the thing, money wasn't a factor. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, so let Phil get in here because you two guys supposed to be Lewis, and sound like Hyplo. You're proving my point about Ali being more global. But go ahead, Phil. What you got?
Yeah, man. Can you guys hear me loud and clear?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a case for somebody different. I mean, I hope y'all don't mind me throwing in another curveball because I know y'all kind of narrowed it down. I'm gonna go. Okay, I'm gonna go Mike Tyson, man. I think when I get the Ali thing, man. And if I'm being fair, for the sake of what you guys are discussing, to me, I'm going Ali. Okay. But for the sake of my own personal reasons being, because first and foremost, I'm old enough to have seen Mike Tyson. You understand what I'm saying? I was living through the impact that he was making. And I mean, look, I take another step further, man. I think whenever Tyson is active, he's the face of boxing. I mean, even when he came back for his exhibition against Roy Jones, I mean, it still did over 1 million buys. And the dude had been retired for years. Got beat by McBride. None of that matters. To me, when you talk about Tyson, it does not matter if he loses, if he wins. He's just the kind of guy that as long as he's active, he can be the face of boxing, right? And I think if he fought right now and he came back, and then no matter who it would be, I mean, it would be a global sensation. You understand what I'm saying? Just his impact with the video games. I mean, the acting. I mean, the guy has sold out arenas as a fucking comedian. Now he's in the podcast as well as his business endeavors when it comes to the legalization of marijuana. He's an activist for that. I mean, so when I think about Mike Tyson, man, there's so many facets that this man touches, and he touches just off via fast track of boxing. So at the end of the day, we may be splitting hairs with a lot of this stuff, but again, I just think as a polarizing figure and somebody who is still active amongst the sport currently, I'm gonna go with Iron Mike. And believe me, these two guys on the phone know that I'm not a big Iron Mike fan, but his impact on the sport is undeniable. So that's just my own opinion. But for the sake of what you guys are debating now, for me, it's got to be Muhammad Ali, because on a world level, I just don't think it's no comparison. That's just my little spiel real quick. It's been a good show though, too, Zone. It's been a hell of a show. I've been listening in the whole time. It's been a good show, and it's different than what's being talked about on YouTube by all the other channels. You understand what I'm saying? So I like the direction that the show went in today, because it's educational, it's good knowledge coming from everybody, and it just shows the depth of the people that's on the panel. I appreciate the show today, brother.
Oh, no problem, man. Now I'm gonna say this. I'm glad you add this wrinkle in. If you were to ask me, now we kind of told Big Hill we wanted to do this. Now let me make sure we clear, because Phil came in and broke it down quick. Now, objectively, I'm saying Ali. But personally, subjectively, I would say Tyson. I said Tyson, I've been saying Tyson all day, but for us being to an objective conclusion, I'm going to say Ali. And that's what I'm conversating on for this argument. But Phil, I actually agree with you far as it actually being Mike Tyson because I kind of did live through it and the video games and everything that you mentioned. So, hey, also Hyplo and Chief, do y'all got something? Were y'all being objective or y'all being subjective? And if so, what's the difference in who do you really got as opposed to what you may have said on the panel right now? Your personal favorite as opposed to just trying to come through with you.
I think I was pretty clear about. I'm trying to be as objective as I can. I did not live through most of the Ali era, or definitely not the Joe Louis era. I'm going by what I've read and the research that I've done, and saying that I still think Joe Louis was a bigger, maybe slightly bigger world figure, but it's fucking hard to say, bro. That's why I said from the beginning, I wouldn't be able to really pick between Ali and Lewis, but gun to my head, I would have to say Lewis just because of the whole World War II thing and how big that was. But, as far as in my lifetime, absolutely Tyson. Fuck yeah, Tyson. I mean, I grew up hearing the name Muhammad Ali. I saw the tail end of his career. But Tyson, I rode the roller coaster from the fucking beginning to the end. I went up, down with Mike Tyson. We all knew Mike Tyson was, the baddest man on the planet. So yeah, I can understand the Tyson thing, but as a world figure, I think that Joe Louis and Ali were far more significant world figures than Mike Tyson was outside the ring. And Tyson is no slouch, believe me. He's definitely known worldwide, but I think they had a different kind of significance.
Can I throw something in there real quick?
Yeah, you got it.
All right, so and it's another reason why I'm saying Tyson, because I know we're speaking from this on the world scale. I mean, let's not act like Tyson is big over there in like Japan. I mean, on the world stage, I do think we might be shortchanging Tyson a little bit, to be honest about it. I mean, because when he did his comedy tour, it wasn't just something that was in the States. He did a world tour. You don't do a world tour unless you're worldwide. You understand what I'm saying? So from a popularity level, I think we may be slighting Iron Mike just a little bit. Just a little bit. But I get your points though, Hyflow. You make all good points, and I know what kind of research you've done on this stuff. So, but I'm just giving my perspective on it because again, I seen this live in 3D. So that's just my opinion about it.
I agree with that. I think that the Mike Tyson might be getting slighted. And Chief, when you go ahead and give your opinion, Phil, I'm gonna bounce it back to you to get your thoughts on the Roy Jones Jr. conversation about him ever being the face of boxing at any time. Go ahead, Chief. You got the flow.
Well, you asked about being subjective or objective. My favorite. Hang on a second. No, I can't go right now. I'll have to come back. There's gonna be too noisy over here.
Oh no, you good. You good. Then Phil, you got it. You get
No,
the cook.
yeah, Phil, go ahead. It's too noisy over here right now.
Yeah, we got you. Go ahead, Phil. You can cook back on the Roy Jones thing or add more to the Tyson.
Okay, now I can cook on the Roy Jones thing, man. I hope it's not too much wind in my background. I hope it's not bad. But
Yeah, you got some
again,
wind. Yeah, you got some wind in there. Yeah, you definitely got wind. And if you finna really cook, you might want to make sure this one come in clear.
yeah.
Let me just respond to your Tyson thing while you're getting out of the wind. I think the difference for me between a Tyson and Ali and Lewis is Tyson is definitely as well known as those guys, but he was never like the hero of a fucking war or the hero of an anti-war movement or something huge, like socially significant type thing, like those guys were. Of course, is extremely famous. I'm not shortchanging his fame. His fame is gigantic. Like I say, he's still the face of boxing right now. If you really want to know, 1.6 million pay-per-view buys on a exhibition, and no one could even win. Two guys who hadn't fought in 20 years or something, like whatever. But yes, very famous in my lifetime. Definitely the face of boxing, but I don't think he's on the Joe Louis and Ali level. Go ahead, Phil.
Give me about 3-4 minutes. I'm walking to my car.
Okay, so he'll be in the car soon. So what I'm saying, just to recap and just to touch on blood, I did speak on some of those, and I agree kind of along the lines with what blood probably would say, and I got Ali as the face of boxing from a objective standpoint. But Ali is great. But from a subjective standpoint, I'm going to say Tyson because I just have more. If I were to do research on Ali or Joe Louis or Jack Johnson, it still would never do the justice that it would do when I know TJ Combo from Killer Instinct is modeled after Mike Tyson. When Bulldog from Street Fighter is modeled after Mike Tyson, and they couldn't even use M. Bison, they had to reverse it. So the M. Bison that we know from Street Fighter, that was supposed to be Vega. And Vega, that was supposed to be Bulldog, hence the name Bulldog, which is a Spanish type of bullfighting type of name. And M. Bison was supposed to be Bulldog, if you're familiar with Street Fighter. But they had to switch it around to make it not as obvious, and you end up getting Vega being M. Bison that we know, and Vega being Bulldog that we know, and then the Bulldog being, Bulldog supposed to be M. Bison, and it just didn't go that way. So M. Bison ended up being M. Bison. So there's too many impacts and too many influences that Mike Tyson had. Then let's start thinking about
What about Creed being based on Ali?
Now this is no slouch. That hey, plenty of movies and documentaries been made on all the guys that we pretty much spoke on. You start talking about Jack Johnson, Great White Hype, and all that kind of stuff. Man, we're good. Or is it Great White Hope? One of them.
Hope. With
Hope.
James
Great White
James
Hope.
Earl Jones.
Yeah.
Because Hype is Damon Wayans in it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So no, they all got some type of cinematography behind them, but Mike Tyson got a lot, not just documentaries. He got a lot. He's been in The Hangover. He's been in Ip Man. He's been on his like Phil said, his world tour. And I'm gonna pass it to Phil because he sounds like he might be in his car. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass that rock just to burn that time.
Give me 1 second, Zone.
Okay, you got the flow, Hype Low, until he come back. Whatever you want to say.
Well, I think, I agree with what you're saying about Tyson 100%. He, like, all those video game characters that were based on him. I mean, the guy is archetype. He's an archetype of boxing. Like, when people think boxing, they think Mike Tyson. But you got to remember, generations are forgotten. And if you think about the fact that the whole Rocky franchise was based on Muhammad Ali, basically fighting Frazier and fighting what's his face, the big fat dude. That to me is up there with Tyson and the video game shit and all the movies and stuff. I mean, Muhammad Ali had a movie with Will Smith. Obviously, Mike Tyson's had a few versions of his story out there with Michael Jai White, and then this one that was unauthorized, and then I think they were going to do another one with Jamie Foxx. But I think the Ali movie was bigger than any of the Tyson stuff, and also I think the whole Rocky franchise, including all the Creed movies, being based on basically Muhammad Ali. They couldn't call him Muhammad Ali; they had to call him Apollo Creed. But you could tell, who he was trying to be, the way he was fighting, dancing, and all that shit, and the way he was talking. I think that's as significant. Yeah, Chuck Webner, RGM.
Yeah, Chuck Webner. So having said that, I'm trying to be objective as possible, like I was saying earlier. And when it comes to the dog and the hunt between those two, my favorite heavyweights are Vander Holyfield, and I don't have him as an icon. So I figured that from that standpoint, I'm being as objective as possible. I also happen to really like the World War II era, and I study it a lot, which that may be a bias point, but that doesn't mean that I'm like Joe Louis more than Muhammad Ali just because I like the World War II era. My point in that is I'm trying to wrap my mind around two eras that I wasn't alive for. And my grandfather was a big influence in my life, and Jack Dempsey and Jack Dempsey and Joe Louis were two people he taught me about. So I knew well more about them from him before I knew about boxing. And then from that lessons also, what Hop was saying earlier, when it came time to names that I knew growing up without even being able to remember what they were, who they were, or why they were, it was Ali and Leonard. So we know that they're all on the list. Is there a strong case for Ali to be over Joe Louis? Yes. There's something about the way Joe Louis that I admired, and I'm not saying I didn't admire Ali. I'm saying that that's the one that sang to me louder. However, having said all this, putting out there Mike Tyson was in the most influential game of our generation, even if it was just a highlight in Barog in Street Fighter II, which was an international absolute sellout in almost every continent in the world. And they made a image of him in that character, whether it was really literally supposed to be him or not. They thought boxing, they made a character that looked like Mike Tyson. This is rearranging my thoughts a tad bit on who I think is the most iconic.
Right. Think about it.
So I'm still in a conundrum in my head of Lewis is on the top of my head versus Ali. However, I have to differentiate between those two. But in my lifetime, definitely, Mike Tyson is by far the most iconic sports figure, period, that I know of, and that's including Michael Jordan. Not in this country, worldwide. Michael Jordan's he's a hell of an icon. And I'm watching the Last Dance now, and I'm learning even more about him than I did before. So I know he's huge. I know he's great. I know every impact he's had because I lived through it. I'm learning more. But you're right. Tyson's, if I'm pushing 50, he's pushing 60. And like someone said, the loudest roar at the fight the other night, they showed Mark Wahlberg. They showed Floyd Mayweather. They showed the person that got the loudest audience applause was Mike Tyson.
Exactly.
So
I mean, they had him with the weigh-in.
So hey, look. So Chief, this is what we're gonna do, just so we can get.
I'm ready now too. By the way, I'm in my car.
Gotcha. So listen,
it's the floor to me. I'll make my case and yield it to you, sir.
no, Chief, I'm gonna let you finish off strong. Hyper. Okay. I'm gonna let you finish if you're done, and then Phil take us home because I gotta peel up out of here. It's that time. So right. Chief, finish up, Hyplo, and then Phil, you take us home with everything you want to say, and that give you a chance to respond to both of them and conclude it. Go ahead, Chief.
Mine's very anticlimactic because I know I'm really up in the air, but I'll go by this. Most of the most iconic things that have happened in the world right now of the current modern era may have been influenced by Ali and Joe Louis' eras, but they're also influenced by Tyson's era, and more so now of the people that are around now than the impacts of Ali and Louis. So I'm gonna have to go with Tyson, with possibly Ali then Louis, or Louis. I personally have Louis then Ali, but those are going to be my three tops in order, and I'm yielding the floor.
Yeah, I'm going.
Oh, sorry. Was I supposed to go or no?
No, you got it, Hype. You got it, brother.
I was just gonna real quick. I was gonna say, in terms of relevance right now and who people would pick right now, I would say Ali would win a survey of 10,000 people. Let's say that you said who is the biggest icon in boxing history, but in reality, from what I know of history and stuff, I'd say Joe Louis, if I had to pick one, was slightly above Ali, but they're damn close, and I can understand the argument for either guy. As far as Tyson goes, I don't put him in that category with those guys, but I do understand his massive significance, and he was definitely a global icon. So, anyway, go ahead, Phil.
All right, well, let me let y'all two get on out of here. Chief, where can they find you, man? Give your last shout out, and then Hyplo, where can they find you as well? So, Chief, go ahead. Where can they find you at?
I got a Discord with my boxing name that's on there, Boxing Chief. You can hit me up there if you need to. I don't do my own show. I make friends with people that have shows because I find it easier to get involved in content with people that already have a fixed idea. But thank you for having me, and God bless you guys. Take care. Have a good weekend, and Phil, floor is yours, and have a safe time, guys.
All right, man. Be safe. Hap.
Yo, everybody knows Haplotype 0. Just hit my channel. That's pretty much the only place you can find me. Salute to Zone, Phil, and Chief for being on. And we'll catch you on the next one.
All right, Hap. And then Phil, you got it, man. It's on you.
Yeah, so just again, man, obviously, Muhammad Ali is a legend. He's been sensationalized. I mean, I personally think Joe Louis gets slighted, honestly, by the general public because they don't really know his story. So I think I think a 10,000 point survey would be a little bit unfair, honestly. But with that being said, man, obviously I have Mike Tyson first, then I have Muhammad Ali, and then I will go Lewis. But in the grand scheme of things, for the Roy Jones argument, I think my buddy who was on here earlier, I just don't think he was as familiar with Roy Jones as most of us was in the actual who was having a conversation about it. Zone, a lot of guys in the chat. I think it was either was it Hill or Zoe that got on. I couldn't remember, but I just think that he was kind of getting slighted because my boy didn't know much about the Roy Jones story, right? The stuff, the impact outside of boxing and whatnot. But yeah, man, absolutely. I think when Oscar lost it for a while, I think Roy Jones was the guy. I mean, to be honest with you, I remember the first time I seen Roy Jones fight, I said, this is the most exciting fucking thing I've seen in boxing in a long time because he brought that different level of
Yo, Phil, you might have hit a dead spot. I don't think we can't hear you right now. Yo, Phil. All right. Is it just me? All right, Phil. Let me make sure before I go ahead and shut this down. But while he's waiting to get back, appreciate everybody for stopping by. We're gonna get more consistent with this and make sure that everything's on the up and up. Phil fell off, so that's gonna be my cue. So no need to jump back in, Phil, because I gotta get on up out of here. Up and up. Okay, yeah, it'll still work. I gotta get on out of here to pick up the children and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm out, man. This your boy Zone6, man. Catch you on the next one. I'm out. Let me see. The numbers say different. All right, man. We out of here.